Anthony works in the grocery store, saving his pennies for someday. Mama Leone left a note at the door. She said, "Sonny, move out to the country. But working too hard can give you a heart attack. You ought to know by now. Who needs a house out in Hackensack? Is that all you get for your money? Well, it seems just a waste of time. If that's what it's all about, Mama, if that's moving up, then I'm moving out. I'm moving out. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. Salvati. Doobie-doobie-doo. 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 I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. We're going to start with the cold open.
Which you'll get out of me for sure.
Well, Ron, what do you think about the annihilation and the decapitation of all the Palestinians in Gaza right now? They basically bulldozed the whole. I worked in the Gaza Strip and worked in Palestinian refugee camps.
But they are not decapitating babies' heads. They are not intentionally doing that.
They're blowing up entire residential buildings. I watched Al Jazeera's, and they're not covering that on CNN.
Well, I would be very careful with Al Jazeera. I mean, that's funded by a lot of these Middle East governments. Yeah, I'd be very careful with Al Jazeera.
But I don't think they're faking pictures of families carrying their babies in, totally dead. You know, it's a two-way street. Israel has been killing Palestinians for the whole time Gaza has existed, and they've been contained.
Hamas, Israel put in a warning. We're going to go in this area. Civilians leave. Hamas tells them not to leave. Hamas wants them to be human shields. That's their tactic, technique, and procedure. How many other armed forces give warnings to get out before they go? I think Israel's probably the only one in the world that does that.
I don't condone the killing of any innocent civilians, and I don't condone what Hamas did in the kibbutzes, but Israel is doing the exact same thing with Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a radical right-wing crazy person, and I see hundreds of Palestinian families that are dead, and they have nowhere to go because they can't leave the Gaza because no one's opening their borders.
Well, that's the thing. You bring up a good point, though. You bring up a really good point. Why aren't these Arab countries willing to absorb some of the Palestinian Arabs? They will not do it. Egypt will not do it. Saudi will not do it. None of them will do it.
They were all displaced from their homes in 1948. I was there. I saw where
none of them will do it. None of the Arab countries will be able to accept refugees.
You had my vote, but you don't now.
Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati, and yes, we are back at it. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays and Fridays. You can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. That was just Ron DeSantis getting a lot of pressure there from what I think were voters. There was a gentleman there at the end telling him that you had my vote, but you don't anymore. And he was pressuring Ron DeSantis about the conflict between Israel and Palestine. And what was really interesting, I wanted to play that as a cold open because I wanted you to see some type of hypocrisy here. Ron DeSantis is telling the people, why won't any of these Arab countries let the Palestinians in, open up their borders and let them in? This is the same man who's been telling you that we need to close our borders, that we should not open our borders. So I want people to understand and pay attention to the hypocrisy that's happening right now. A lot of the same people that are saying we need to protect our border and not let people in are saying the exact opposite when it comes to the conflict between Israel and Palestine. So that guy at the end told Ron DeSantis, you had my vote, but you don't anymore. So welcome. Welcome and happy Friday. Shout out to everyone watching on YouTube and Rockfin and Twitter. I couldn't get the Rumble thing to stream again. I don't know what's going on with that, but I'll have to check. I think it's just sometimes Rumble is buggy and I have issues with that, but I'll go ahead and upload it after it streams. Anyway, I do want to tell you, we do have a breaking news story tonight. I just found out like right before I went live. So stick around. It's in reference to RFK Jr. This is big news, and I'm curious to see what you guys are going to think about that. So we'll get to that story in just a second. First and foremost, I want to give a couple of shout outs. Big show tonight. Let's do the damn thing. Shout out to John. Thank you so much for the super chat. It's past time that organize a real protest, a national one led by the overworking class. The people's protest against government corruption. We need your help, Sabby. Your voice has reach. September 5th, 2024. Send me the information via email. I'll get the word out there. Shout out to Ghost says, Sabby, I liked your earrings from yesterday. Very nice. Oh, thank you. Those earrings are over 10 years old. I've had them. Hey, they held up for a long time, huh? A long time. Yeah, I think I paid like $5 for those earrings. Like $5 for those earrings, man. What? Shout out to the Jammin says, so he still has 2 votes. Oh, let me go up to the top. I'm sorry. There's a lot of comments in the chat. Want to say hello to a couple of peeps. Wow, there's just a lot of comments. I don't know if I could. Can I get to the top? Here we go. All right, here we go. Daniel, what's up? Cornel West needs a billionaire. Calling all billionaires. Red Rover. Send $1 billion right over. Mainstream media speaks one language and it's green, just not the Green Party. Shout out to Hannah says, I'm here early for this. Greetings, Marxist says, we need a revolutionary socialist party urgently. I agree. Greetings, Saker. At least Robbie can thank the Lord that when he made him a fool, he gave him a face of a fool. Damn. Oh, that's an interesting story we're going to cover tonight. What's going on? David said got censored on Facebook. I'm sorry to hear that, David. Oh, no. Shout out to a Hunter says hello to Hannah. Greetings. Whoops, someone hit the same one. Shout out to Chris says, I find it funny how many Trump supporters are rooting for Israel when Republicans position themselves as anti-war when it comes to Ukraine, but pro-genocide when it comes to Palestinians. Oh, we're calling out all the hypocrisy tonight, Chris. Welcome. It is Friday. It's time to get crunk. Shout out to Red says, what up, Sabby? Greetings. Peter says, hi. Sup? What's going on? Miguel says, peace. Shout out to JB says, good evening, all from the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Forehead kisses to all. Shout out to, I'm making sure I'm just not going to hit on the same people. Lorez says, what's up, Sabrina, Eric, and Sabby fam? Robbie was unhinged and so cringe with his sanctimonious diatribe about Hamas. Rashida News, I missed that one. Smash the like, y'all. Happy Friday to the weekend. Cheers to the freaking weekend, guys. What's going on? Whoever says, what's up to Miguel? Shout out CBC voter says, happy Friday the 13th. Oh, it is Friday the 13th. Is that why when I turned on Netflix, it was like all the Halloween, like all the horror movies was suggested? I didn't even realize it was Friday the 13th. What's up, CBC voter? Shout out to P. Smith, who's a Sabby member, says happy evening. What's going on? Tori sends love and says hello. Shout out to Desert Mantis says, is Sabrinasalvati really Sabby? Speaking of that, there has been someone that has been commenting on my videos. They're using my face. That's not me. For those of you who've been with me for a while, I don't read the comments, but someone messaged me and told me that someone was doing this and they knew it wasn't me. If you notice the account, that's not me. So do not respond to those messages. It's a scam. That person is actually trying to get money from people. I've already tried to hide that account. They create new ones. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Shout out to Eric T. Red, who's a Sabby member, says, moving out. Greetings, Rick says, hey, y'all. What's going on? Nikki says, hey, everyone. Shout out to Randy, says, happy Friday the 13th evening, Sabby comrades. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. I know there's a lot more people I love to say hello to, but we do have a lot to cover tonight. So let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. You're out here doing the damn thing and keeping the lights on around me. Thank you so much to those of you who are Sabby patrons. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories: Ultimate, Sabinators, Sabsters. There's also Sabbies, and of course, members. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. So much to cover. Again, for those of you just joining, we do have a surprise story tonight that I will get into about RFK Jr. news that just broke before I went live. So let's go ahead and share that beautiful thumbnail. At least I think it's kind of beautiful. I think it is a little bit. Tonight, what are we discussing, ladies and gentlemen? Tonight, we're discussing Cornel West versus Alan Dershowitz. Huge debate there on Sean Hannity. We're going to dive into that. That's in reference to the conflict in Israel and Palestine. We're also going to get into this story from The Hill Rising. BRIAHNA Joy Gray and ROBBIE Asov. I think that's how you say Robbie's last name. Sov. Also a debate about Israel and Palestine. And this went to next level. Because I don't think I've ever seen ROBBIE yell. So that one kind of took me by surprise. We're also going to discuss Rashida Tlaib is attacked apparently by both parties. And we're going to get into these Wyoming wins for ballot initiatives. And we're also going to discuss that breaking news story about RFK Jr. Campaign. But first and foremost, let's get into the story about Rashida Tlaib. So I don't know if everyone has been aware, but Rashida Tlaib has been facing a tremendous amount of criticism from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. There are some members of the squad that have been, taking her side or trying to stick up for her, but not the way that it should be if they're a squad, I would say. But Rashida Tlaib, as we all know, is Palestinian. Apparently, there is a lot of uproar in Congress about the fact that Rashida Tlaib has a Palestinian flag outside of her office. Now, again, she is Palestinian. I don't see this being different from anyone having a Puerto Rican flag outside their office or a Dominican flag outside their office. But this has caused quite a bit of controversy, and there's a lot of pressure coming her way. Let's go ahead and get into this first clip here.
Growing outrage over Squad Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's continued display of Palestine's flag outside of her office as atrocities are committed by Hamas in Israel. My next guest has had it, so much so that he's introducing a measure to ban such flags from the halls of Congress. Ohio Republican Congressman Max Miller, who I haven't seen or talked to since years ago, and when we were in Normandy, joins me now. Now, why is this controversial that the American flag should be the flag flying, or a state flag if you represent a particular state?
Right. I don't think this is controversial at all. This is very simple. The halls of Congress, Laura, they belong to the American people. And so the only flags that I believe that should be flown in the halls of Congress should be the American flag, states or territories that we recognize in the POW-MIA, and through the appropriations process, we're going to make sure that none of that is funded. As Rashida Tlaib has I don't even want to call it the Palestinian flag because they're not a state, they're a territory that's about to probably get eviscerated and go away here shortly, as we're going to.
Let's pause there for a second because I already see the problem. So this gentleman who is a congressman from Ohio, he is trying to make this rule that in the halls of Congress, the only flags that you can have outside your office is the American flag and those American territories that the United States recognizes. I don't see this being any different from someone having a Puerto Rican flag in their car or a Dominican flag. These are things I see all the time. A Puerto Rican flag in their car, a Dominican flag in their car. It doesn't mean that they despise the United States. It's just them representing their culture, right? I see the same. Look, I live in the Boston area. I see Irish flags too. A lot of the people that I know here that are Irish American have never been to Ireland, but that is their way of embracing their heritage. So I think this is something that we need to focus on, because I'm wondering, how far is this going to go? I just saw a story recently coming out of the UK where they were arresting pro-Palestinian protesters because they had the Palestinian flag, not for violence, just simply because they were wearing the Palestinian flag around them. And what I fear is that it's going to get to the point where this is another level of censorship that is going to happen. And you don't have to agree with the conflict. You don't have to even be on a side. I want you to think about this from a censorship issue. First, it's the Palestinian flag. Whose flag is next? What item is next? What else are they going to tell you that you can't wear or you can't display? So that's how I want you to look at this situation going into this story. This is a dangerous precedent here.
Turn that into a parking lot, but I've made it my mission to target anti-Semites.
That part right there too. See how he brags about genocide? Listen to this.
WMIA, and through the appropriations process, we're going to make sure that none of that is funded. As Rashida Tlaib has I don't even want to call it the Palestinian flag, because they're not a state, they're a territory that's about to probably get eviscerated and go away here shortly, as we're going to turn that into a parking lot.
Did you hear what he just said? He just basically told you that Gaza is about to go away because they're going to turn it into a parking lot. He's bragging about the idea of demolishing Gaza. Remember what I told you, 2 million people in Gaza, half of them are children. Now, people are saying they have been alerted to leave. The problem is, where are they going to go? So to the point of that clip I played earlier from Ron DeSantis saying these other countries don't want to let them in, the hypocrisy of him, right? Where are they supposed to go? If they can't go to Egypt, if they can't go to Jordan, where are the people supposed to go? So essentially what he is telling you is he is okay. By the way, he's okay with this, of a genocide of the Palestinian people. When he says they're going to flatten it, they're going to turn it into a parking lot, that's exactly what he's referring to, because they are trapped. They have nowhere to go.
But I've made it my mission to target anti-Semites. We went after Ilhan Omar with H.R. 76 to remove her off the House Foreign Affairs Committee. I will not tolerate hate or anti-Semitism, and the halls of Congress are for the American people.
Well, there's a huge...
It's never hate towards the Palestinians, though. You see, I want you to pay attention to what he's saying, because he's bragging about turning Gaza into a parking lot. I consider that to be some type of hatred. But this is the problem that we have in this country. It seems like it's okay to have hatred towards people that are Muslim and Muslim countries, but it's not okay. You should have hatred towards anyone, any ethnicity, any religion, any race. But in this particular country, ever since September 11, there has been a surge of Islamophobia in this country. I saw it for the first time after September 11, and now I feel like I'm seeing a surge of it again. So he's okay with that kind of hatred. Let's continue.
Huge pro-Palestine rally happening right now with thousands and thousands of people gathered in Dearborn, Michigan tonight, supporting her. So, and she would say she's supporting her constituents and representing their interests, not to be targeted or discriminated against. And they have their views on Israel. They're certainly the opposite of my views. But she's saying, I'm representing my people.
Yeah, and people...
So I want to debunk something that she just said here, because this is actually how Islamophobia can spread. She is comparing the Palestinian people to the group of Hamas. So what that group did does not represent the entire group of Palestinian people. And, you know, we have to be very careful here, very careful, because I've seen this type of thing happen before. So here she is speaking out, basically saying like, well, yeah, you know, she's representing her constituents. You know, these people are, she's basically saying that Palestinian people are anti-Semitic. It is not right to take the actions of Hamas and label an entire group of people based on the actions of Hamas. That would be like another country labeling the actions of the people that came out on January 6th, of the Proud Boys, of the KKK. That would be like people labeling those groups and using it to identify everybody that's American. There are different groups, there are different factions, and people are not a monolith. But you see what she's doing here. Let's continue.
Are entitled to their views, and if she is saying she's representing her district, then I'm just going to go ahead and say it, Laura. She's representing a bunch of people who think it's okay for Hamas to cut off 40 babies' heads, which has been confirmed by dozens of news outlets.
Let's stop there. That has already been debunked multiple times. So he's lying. Even he lies twice in one sentence. He talks about the 40 babies, and then he lies again when he says it's been confirmed. It was never confirmed. So that's been debunked multiple times. He's also telling people on Fox News that all the people in her district who are Palestinian agree with what Hamas did. That is not true. Not everyone who's Palestinian agree with the actions of Hamas or support what Hamas has done. Just like not everyone that's Jewish agree with what Netanyahu is doing, or agree with the IDF, or agree with Zionism. So we have to stop these generalizations. But let me tell you something. They brought him on here on purpose. This is done for a reason. This is how hate spreads.
Thinks it's okay for Hamas to go in there and take Holocaust survivors.
Some of them were beheaded. The news organizations have reported 40 babies were died.
Absolutely.
They're dead.
They're absolutely dead. And they're cutting their heads off. And she's proudly displaying the flag of terrorism in the halls of Congress. These individuals, if you support Hamas, make no mistake, you are an anti-Semite and you are a savage. And you have no place in the United States of America.
Max, what?
I just want to correct something else here that he said. So again, he continues to lie, saying that the 40 babies, that was wrong. That was false. Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, all of them have told this lie, and all of them need to come forward and they need to apologize for that lie. Number one. Number two, this point here, hold on.
Terrorism in the halls of Congress. These individuals, if you support Hamas, make no mistake, you are an anti-Semite and you are a savage, and you have no place in the United States of America.
Max, what do you think?
Let me pause here for a second. So Rashida Tlaib never said she supported Hamas. Not once. This is another lie that he's telling. Notice the vocabulary, the words that he's using to describe a group of people. Savage. What other words have they said? They've said savage, barbaric. These are the same things that they said about indigenous people and that they've said about African Americans in this country. Pay close attention to that. These are those dog whistles that I've been telling people about. No, they're not coming right out and saying, hey, I think all these people are ... They're not saying it that way, but they're still saying it.
I'm calling you Max because you're a kid. To me, Congressman, that's
no, we've known each other for a bit.
I've known you so long.
It's all good.
But what about our southern border? I started the show by talking about the fact that we could be next. We have an open border. We're policing Ukraine's border. Israel's trying to police its border with Gaza. How difficult that is, we're going to see. But meanwhile, we have tens of thousands of people coming into the country from special interest countries and 160 on the terror watch list who we know about.
Exactly.
Let me pause there. There's another lie. She said that Israel is defending its border. As I explained to you on this show a couple of nights ago, a fence is not a border. Gaza is not a separate country. You see, this is part of the reason why, and we can stop it there because then he goes into like the whole immigration thing. This is part of the reason why people have stopped watching mainstream media. This is part of the reason why they just come on here and they just spew these lies. And a lot of this is because they want to keep us divided. They want you to dislike some other group so that we can't come together. I really believe that's the ultimate goal. If it's not for the media, do you hate these people? Who provokes it? Who eggs it on? Who tells you not to like a certain group of people? Now, Rashida Tlaib was approached, and I will say this, Rashida Tlaib, you have got to stop running away from people when they are asking you difficult questions. When you put out statements about how you really feel about your culture and your people, you should be woman enough to stand there and talk to those reporters when they come to you and tell them how you feel. I've seen her do this multiple times. Here we go. Tlaib stays silent when pressed on Hamas brutality. Listen to this.
And some of them were beheaded right in front of their parents, and then their parents were killed after the parents had to watch their baby.
So again, that's another lie. There they are lying again. None of this was ever confirmed. Nobody saw this happen. And people have been debunking this for the past couple of days. But let's go back.
And some of them were beheaded right in front of their parents, and then their parents were killed after the parents had to watch their babies beheaded. So that's what, and then she has a Palestinian flag outside of her office. So Hillary's asking her about, do you condone what's happening?
Watch.
So you see how she's running away? So this right here, again, what could she have done? She could have at least stopped, turned and talked to the reporter and said, this is what I feel. Let me tell you what I feel about this particular situation. When you run away, it makes you look guilty. And I've said this before, the squad is notorious for doing this. Anna Presley might stop and talk to people, but AOC runs away. Jamal Bowman likes to run away. They're notorious for doing this. It makes you look worse. Just stop and answer the question and tell them what you really feel. Otherwise, it looks like, oh man, I said something wrong. I did something wrong. So I'm just going to take off. Stand up for what you believe in. If you believe, that you should be free to express your culture and where you come from, then you say that to the reporter. But she's running away.
Terrorists have cut off babies' heads and burned children alive. Do you support Israel's rights to defend themselves against this brutality?
We're just going to go through there.
You can't comment about Hamas terrorists chopping off babies' heads. Do you condone what Hamas has done, chopping off babies' heads, burning children alive, raping women in the street? You have no comment about children's heads being chopped off? Congressman, why do you have a Palestinian flag outside your office if you do not condone what Hamas terrorists have done to Israel?
That's like saying, why do you have an American flag outside your office if you don't condone what happened on January 6th? Oh, silence. Why do you have an American flag outside your office if you don't condone the Proud Boys? You see how we can play this game all night. We can turn it around. Why do you have a German flag outside your office if you don't condone Nazi Germany? We can do this with multiple different countries. The reporter and other news outlets, it's gotten to the point now where they are basically saying that if you support Palestine in any type of way that you are supporting Hamas. What one group does not speak for the entire country, for the entire group of people. We really need to start thinking about this. We really need to start thinking about, what if I would have said to people, why do you have an American flag outside your office after what happened to George Floyd? Do you condone what happened to George Floyd? We have to wake up. And Rashida Tlaib, if I was her, turn around and say that. Turn around and say, look, I am Palestinian. This is my culture. This is where my family is from. And one group doesn't represent the entire group of people. That's all you had to do. Why are you running
away? Do Israeli lives not matter to you?
That should be the easiest.
See what they do? See how they flip it? Oh, she just doesn't care. She doesn't care about those lives. You see, now all of a sudden it's, you should care about other lives. But I remember a couple years ago when people were marching around in the streets in this country saying Black Lives Matter, what was the response from some of the same people on Fox News? No, 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 no. All lives matter. And if we would have responded and said, you don't care about Black lives? Pay attention, guys. Pay attention. That's why I told you this is all propaganda. Now, DSA, and I bring this up because of Rashida Tlaib, this is all connected. DSA is having a rift between the split between the squad and where they stand on this issue and the values of DSA, because DSA came out with this statement: Congress is preparing to fund a genocide. Rather than seek de-escalation, the ruling class spends its time smearing those who recognize the humanity of Palestinians and the true cause of this conflict, apartheid. We will not be cowed in the fight for peace and liberation. Why couldn't Rashida Tlaib say that? When I went over the principles of DSA a couple of months ago, one of those principles was that as a DSA member, you do not agree with funding Israel. And in reference to the conflict between Israel and Palestine, you side with Palestine. That's their principles. I didn't write those principles. Now, Politico mentioned this as well in reference to DSA in this conflict. Unacceptably devoid of empathy, DSA is facing an internal reckoning on Israel. Not going to read the entire article, but this part right here I want you to see. DSA is coming apart at the seams. Representative Jamal Bowman let his membership lapse. Colleague AOC ripped the New York chapter over a pro-Palestinian rally on Sunday. And others on the left are struggling to reconcile their views with the group, even disavowing it amid criticism from across the political spectrum. The reckoning for DSA in the wake of Hamas attacks on Israel could mark a realignment at the extreme end of the Democratic Party. Progressive politicians looking for an endorsement from the DSA have long faced a Middle East litmus test. This is what I was telling you guys about. Answering questions about whether they'll boycott Israel and if they'll back Palestinians living under occupation. I told you, this is one of their principles. The brutality Saturday, violence of a greater scope and intensity than earlier Israeli-Palestinian clashes, has shaken some who'd been boosted by DSA, and the blowback has been felt across Congress, state houses, and city halls where the party has made inroads. In Michigan, Representative Sri Thandar officially renounced his DSA membership, saying in a statement Wednesday that he won't associate with an organization unwilling to call out terrorism in all its forms. So I saw his statement on Twitter, and honestly, my response was, I don't even know who you are. Because I don't. Never heard of this dude. All of a sudden, he's this big thing because of the statement that he made on Twitter. Who are you, man? Did you not read the principles of DSA before you decided to join that organization? I don't know about you guys, but I look over those things before joining something. In Los Angeles, DSA endorsed City Council member Rahman rejected the group's rhetoric late Tuesday, saying a national DSA statement on the attacks failed to reckon with the horrors committed by Hamas and was unacceptably devoid of empathy for communities in Israel. Again, did you guys not pay attention to what the organization was? In New York, the DSA lost one of its prominent members in Bowman, a vocal critic of the Israeli government. Jamal Bowman gets money from J Street. DSA was actually contemplating removing Jamal Bowman's membership over a year ago because he took that trip to Israel. And again, that goes against DSA principles. So he's officially gone. His spokesperson confirmed Wednesday that he let his membership expire last year following disagreements on funding Israel's missile defense system. Again, these people paid no attention to what they joined. The bloodshed and budding war in Israel are shining a brighter spotlight on tension between the often younger left-leaning DSA-backed politicians and their mainstream Democratic colleagues. And of course, you'll see AOC and Bowman here selling out as usual. Now, I want to go to this clip here from Case Study QB, also in reference to this particular situation. Rabbi Shmuley was on Fox Business. Now, they actually questioned him about Rashida Tlaib as well. I want you to hear what he had to say.
After the horrors of the Holocaust, the world promised to never again allow the senseless murder of Jews, and now people around the globe, they're standing up to the pure evil of Hamas.
Here now with why supporting Israel at this time is so important. Rabbi Shmuley Boteach.
This guy just seems to make it everywhere, right? Like, come on, I think we know who Rabbi Shmuley is. This guy was a reality TV star. Let's fast forward a little bit to the Rashida Tlaib part. I'll put it right here.
Elie Wiesel, the world's most famous Holocaust survivor, famously said, the opposite of love is not hatred. The opposite of love is indifference. Now let's take it a step further. What about if people who don't even know the difference between right and wrong? It's not that they're indifferent, it's that they're clueless. They have no moral compass. We have American congresswomen, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, who are openly siding with Hamas. And even the national American media, from the New York Times to CNN, CBS, NBC, they won't even call Hamas terrorists. Now think about that.
Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are not siding with Hamas. They are siding with the plight of the Palestinian people being occupied and having nowhere to go, being trapped in Gaza and being demolished. That's what they're arguing over. But you see, they're all continuing to spread this lie. Mark my words, Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, I don't know when their re-election is, but their next re-election, they're probably going to struggle. Mark my words. Ilhan Omar barely won her primary re-election this time around.
This man over here, who killed 3,000 Americans, incinerated them, just 3 miles from here on 9/11, 2001, was he a militant or a monster? Was he a soldier or a savage? Was he a belligerent or barbarian? If you cannot call this man a terrorist, then you have no sense of right and wrong. So the language, and look at the way they're saying, 1,200 Jews were slaughtered in Holocaust-level extinction for a day on Saturday and Sunday. And now they're saying that Israel's engaging in retribution? You mean stopping terrorists from killing more Jews is a form of revenge? Jewish life is becoming so worthless. It's very painful.
You know, you talked about...
Let me pause here for just a second, because I got a bone to pick. something that I have noticed, particularly in this country, when Black people come forward and complain about our plight, our struggle, police brutality, etc., the whole nation doesn't stand with us. And there's not a lot of criticism for them not doing so. And to me, it's just really interesting. We called for all of these things after George Floyd. None of them were fulfilled. When Joe Biden got into office, he created an anti-Asian hate bill. Not to say this should not have been done. But what I am to say is that when Black people come forward about our pain and our struggles and the obstacles that we have in this country, nothing is done. This is why sometimes when you hear people say no Black issues, no Black vote, no Black agenda, no Black vote, that's why. Notice how whenever it's other groups, everybody come together. Everybody. When it comes to the Palestinians, their lives don't matter. That's what a lot of these people are saying. That's what a lot of people in mainstream media, that's what a lot of these media pundits are basically saying, that who cares about them? They're Muslim. Who cares about them? They're brown. I heard the same thing in reference to Iraq, the war in Iraq, all the children that were killed in Iraq. Madeleine Albright said, so what? Who cares about them, right? The kids that were killed in Syria. So what, people say. The people that are being killed in Somalia, so what, people say. We have to pay attention to this. And I told you before, why is that? Why is it? Because when it comes to the U.S. government, they don't feel like we have anything to offer them. The politicians don't care about us because we don't have anything to offer them except our vote. And they know that. So the Democrat politicians, they continue to come around only when they need to be reelected. And they'll say, give me your vote. Otherwise, you're going to get the Republicans. Yeah, I hear your struggle. I'm going to do all these things for you. Never do anything for the Black community. Never do. Yeah, we'll start a reparations committee. Nothing moves because they know that we're not giving them anything that's going to help them elevate their political career. We don't have most of the resources. And it's honestly, it's a damn shame. But all of our politicians, they basically just look at us like, meh, who cares about them? I'm not up for re-election. I'll come back to the Black community when it's time for me to get reelected. But where were all these people? And I'm not just talking about George Floyd. I'm talking about all the police brutality cases that have happened. Where were all these people? Fox News, they were blaming George Floyd like they always do. Let me blame the victim. CNN and MSNBC used it as an opportunity to pander to Black people and say, this is why you need to vote for Joe Biden so that this doesn't continue. As if police brutality is only happening under Republican leadership. Pay attention to this, guys.
Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, she's left us dumbfounded when she refused to condemn the murder of Jewish babies by Hamas. I want you to listen to this. I want you to respond.
Terrorist
has cut off babies' heads and burned children alive. Do you support Israel's right to defend themselves against this brutality?
We're just going to go through there.
You can't comment about Hamas parents chopping off babies' heads. And why do you have the Palestinian flag outside your office if you do not condone what Hamas terrorism does to Israel?
When asked here, she was silent, but now she's saying her critics are the hateful ones, saying, quote, I do not support the targeting and killing of civilians, whether in Israel or Palestine. The fact that some have suggested otherwise is offensive and rooted in bigoted assumptions about my faith and ethnicity. Rabbi, how would you respond?
Rashida gonna be gone. How much you guys want to bet? Because these lobby groups, they're gonna put up money against her. Let's remember, Bakari Sellers actually created a pact to try to prevent her from being reelected this time around.
Rashida Tlaib.
She hides behind her ethnicity, but there's a universal morality that Muslims, Jews, and Christians, and atheists and agnostics all live by, and that is that life is precious and that murder is a sin.
Stop right there. She hides behind her ethnicity. The statement that she just gave just told you that she does not agree with the murders on either side. So what is really the problem? The problem is that she's acknowledging that there's been catastrophe on the Palestinian side as well. And that is not what they want you to say. That is not what they want to hear. They don't want you to acknowledge it. They don't want you to talk about it. They want you to pretend that the Palestinian people do not matter. How is that helping out humanity?
Rashida Tlaib is an American abomination. She won an election seat. I truly hope that her constituents will rise up and evict her because...
Hold on to that, because that'll probably happen. Listen to what he's saying. I hope her constituents rise up and evict her. Hold on to that.
She is a disgrace to Islam, which is a great world religion, but she's a disgrace to American values. If she really believes in Hamas, let her go to Gaza right now and try to express an opinion against Hamas. She, God forbid, would lose her life, which nobody wants. We want to keep her safe. Let her say one good word about an LGBTQ Palestinian who have to flee to Israel rather than have their genitals cut off, being decapitated. If you cannot condemn the decapitation of 30 infants at a kibbutz, then evil has no meaning. I'll tell you something else.
Let me go ahead and say this again for the people just joining. That has been debunked multiple times. And people are still spreading this lie. Now he's trying to scare people out of going to Gaza. You know how many journalists have gone to Gaza? Max Blumenthal has been there. Abby Martin has been there. Anya has been there. Several people. I interviewed Kim Iverson earlier today. We recorded that interview. It'll premiere tomorrow. Kim Iverson went to the West Bank. Journalists have been there for years. So why is he trying to make it seem like if you even step foot there, you will be killed?
I love when people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar speak about how religious these the Hamas members are. Do religious men take a half-naked, unconscious woman in her undergarments and parade her body around with such necrophiliac prurience? These are fiends. The savagery, it's very difficult to contain.
That's also been debunked. In fact, that woman came forward recently. You see that why anyone would align theirself with this guy? It's very obvious this guy just wants attention. He wants publicity. He was on a fucking reality show.
But to hear it in the halls of Congress is something that would make the founders of our nation who came to establish liberty and freedom turn over in their graves.
I just want to point something out while you're here really briefly. The Democrats have known that this is what these individuals were all about for years. This is in 2019. Rashida Tlaib invited a Hezbollah and Hamas supporter to a private family dinner, celebrating her elevation to Congress, a man who had said Israel had no right to exist.
And you guys on Fox News have had white supremacists invited on to Fox News. So I don't really think you're the one to talk. I don't think you're the voice of morality here.
And when she joined Congress, she put that Post-it note on her map and that said Palestine and pointed to Israel. And when you quote over and over again the language of what is the language from river to sea?
Palestine will be free, of course.
Right, but that means eradication of
genocide.
Jews. That means genocide. So we know.
This is how the hypocrisy comes in. So notice they have no problem with genocide of Palestinians. You got, oh my God. Oh my God. And for Sean Duffy to sit there, you know what, Sean, go back to the real world. If people don't know, that's where I remember Sean coming from, was MTV's The Real World, Boston. That's how Sean got to where he is. I can't even listen to the rest of it. It's absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. You see the difference in the way the people are treated. And this is why I said before, for Black people on the internet that are saying the BS, miss me with all that. Miss me with all of it. Because as I said before on this show, during the George Floyd protests, Palestinian people were out there in the streets with us. They were teaching the protesters how to fight off tear gas. We have similar struggle. When Afeni was on the show, what did she tell you? What did we tell you? There is a statue of Nelson Mandela in Palestine. Nelson Mandela went to Palestine. Nelson Mandela fought back against apartheid in South Africa. Now, some of the same people who speak out against the apartheid in South Africa, they can't speak out against the apartheid that's happening in Israel. And you guys need to sit back and ask yourself why. Malcolm X went to Palestine. You had Black Panthers who were in solidarity with Palestine. But a lot of people don't know this because the history that you're reading in your textbooks has been whitewashed. Close the books in your schools, close those history textbooks in your schools, and go educate yourself in the fucking library. Go pick up some of them books in the library, the ones that they don't tell you to read. Not the ones that your teacher assigns you. Don't just read those books. There are still people who are Black Panthers who are still alive today. Talk to some of those people. Get to know the real history of revolutionary leaders in this country, and you'll understand. Let me go to some of the comments, and then I'll go to that other statement that came from CNN. JB says, Sabs, if BRIAHNA flipped out like Robbie did, she'd be labeled as an angry Black woman. Actually, I'll hold on to that. We'll get into that in a second. Thank you, Anthony. Palestine needs a fighter, not a crybaby in Congress. Thank you, John. Hey, Sabby, love the show. Real quick, the People's Protest Against Government Corruption is November 5th, 2024. Washington, D.C., the working class stands united to dismantle the authoritarian war machine. Thanks, Sabs. You in. I can be in. Can you email this to me? Is there a website? Please email me because I will not remember all this from the show. Thank you, Roger. Get it, Sab. Black people have few friends and no power. Thank you, John. Israel is gearing up to attack Iran, and this is their 9/11 moment to justify it, just like the U.S. did with Iraq. This is scripted and has been played out over and over and over. Thank you for this, John. P.S. This chat is full of awkward bots. Eric can check for that. Thank you, Awi. Went to BUSPH, created mock C trial in 2016, hired shortly after by pharma, been stalked and terrorized every job, tried to make me suicide. Whoa, the government is stalking me and ruining my life. Awi, if that's the case, you probably shouldn't put that up on here because all they have to do is, I mean, you're using an account. I don't know if you have more than one YouTube account, but all they have to do is go to that account and track your IP address. So I would not put that information there, but that's crazy that that's happening. Yikes. We'll go to that comment on Rockfin in just a second. But I want to show you again, when I told you that they were lying, here is CNN correspondent Sarah Sidner. Yesterday, the Israeli Prime Minister's office said that it had confirmed Hamas beheaded babies and children while we were live on the air. The Israeli government now says today it cannot confirm babies were beheaded. I needed to be more careful with my words, and I am sorry. But you know what, Sarah? The damage is already done. Is CNN going to retract that statement? MSNBC, Fox News, are you all going to retract that statement, that lie that you guys spread over the past couple of days? I'll take that comment on Rockfin. Thank you for the tip, Roger on Rockfin. Find congressmen, then prioritize American people in funding. Prioritize Maui. Prioritize East Palestine. What the health and environmental disaster? Prioritize Flint. Prioritize Jackson. Prioritize Baltimore with their water infrastructure. Prioritize San Fran. I think you mean LA, San Fran with the homelessness crisis. Prioritize New York City and Chicago with the migrant crisis, and deprioritize military campaigns abroad and here. That's right. That is right. We're going to jump into that surprise story. So I do have a surprise news story tonight that I did find out about right before I went live. And so for those of you that are interested in RFK Jr.'s campaign, you might want to stay tuned for this. We're going to jump into that story now. So I was just minding my own business, just scrolling through in a bit, and I saw this tweet from Brianna Joy Gray. And so I had to look at the article and skim through it really quick before I went live. And I was like, holy smokes. Because if you have been paying attention to RFK Jr.'s campaign, something huge just happened. And I don't know how people are going to feel about it, because I think it sends a message. So Brianna Joy Gray tweeted this: Dennis Kucinich, who has been critical of Israel's abuses against Palestinians and of U.S. funding of Israel throughout his political career, is no longer RFK Jr.'s campaign manager. I'll give everyone a second to grab some popcorn, tea, a beer, because we're going to get into the thick of it. We're going to get into the thick of it. She went on to say RFK's daughter-in-law, a former CIA officer, is replacing him. I can't make this up. There's the headline. Let's get into the article. Woo! Dennis Kucinich leaves RFK Jr.'s presidential campaign. In a shakeup just days after announcing his independent bid, RFK Jr. replaced his campaign manager, Dennis Kucinich, with his daughter-in-law. Now, for those who are not aware, when I covered RFK Jr.'s campaign on the ground in Boston, the announcement, he did mention his daughter-in-law. He said that the CIA needs to be, reformed. They need to shake it up, etc. He also mentioned that his daughter-in-law was former CIA and that she would be working with him on his campaign. And then some of us would like, say, what? I'm like, what? Now, there are people that have been a part of the CIA that have left the CIA and have flipped on the CIA, right? Like Scott Ritter is one of those people, or actually Scott Ritter was he intelligent? He was intelligent something, but there have been people that have been whistleblowers, right? Now, from what I understand about her, apparently she has written a book that does discuss how the CIA should be reformed, right? You guys know how I feel about reform. I don't think reform actually works. I believe in dismantle and rebuild something new. because reform, you'll get tweaks here and there, but in order to have full change, you have to dismantle the system and you have to build something new. Because I've seen reform in education system, we've seen reforms in policing, and problems still exist because you have to tear that building down. You have to tear down that system. You got to pull up the tree at the root. You can't just cut off branches. It's rotten to the core. But let's get into this because this is a doozy. Dennis Kucinich left his post as the presidential campaign manager for RFK Jr. and was replaced by Mr. Kennedy's daughter-in-law, a political neophyte best known for a memoir about her tenure in the CIA. The campaign shakeup comes at a moment of renewed scrutiny on Mr. Kennedy's campaign. The political scion of one of the most influential families in contemporary American politics announced on Monday that he was ending his Democratic primary challenge to President Biden and would continue his campaign as an independent candidate. Now, I did applaud RFK Jr. for doing that. Some of you said, Sabby, you're too hard on RFK. Sorry. I don't know what you want me to say, but I did applaud him for making that move to independent. Mr. Kucinich's departure came a surprise, even to Mr. Kennedy's press secretary, who was informed of it on Friday afternoon by a New York Times reporter. In a subsequent news release, Mr. Kennedy said his campaign had benefited enormously from the political experience of Dennis Kucinich. Mr. Kucinich was not quoted in the release. So if it was a surprise to the press secretary, that makes you wonder what happened behind the scenes. Now I'm just going to make a guess. We all know what RFK Jr. has been saying in reference to this conflict between Israel and Palestine. We know that he said he stands with Israel. He's friends with Rabbi Shmuley. He's also said some pretty damning things about Palestinians, calling them terrorists, and we've heard it. But some of you may not remember, but Dennis Kucinich actually had the opposite view when it came to the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Dennis Kucinich ran for president. I don't know if everyone remembers, but Dennis Kucinich was very vocal about the support and the fight for the Palestinian struggle on the national stage. So for the longest time, I have known how Dennis Kucinich felt about this conflict. That's why I was very surprised when I heard RFK's position on that particular issue, because I knew Dennis Kucinich didn't believe that. And I knew Dennis Kucinich was very critical of the state of Israel and their treatment towards the Palestinian people. Openly critical. That's also one of the reasons why he doesn't have a seat anymore in Congress. You see, back in those days, Dennis Kucinich was the progressive in Congress before there was a squad. Even Bill Clinton didn't like Dennis Kucinich's views. Typical dude, came from working class background, Cleveland, Ohio. Still, from what I understand, from what I'm told, Dennis Kucinich still lives in the same house. Didn't, become bougie and sell out to the people. From what I understand, he's still like a working class, chill dude. And Dennis Kucinich, that back then, especially during that time, was considered problematic, not just in Congress, but to Bill Clinton as well. They were so tired of Dennis Kucinich's positions in reference to the people, the American people and the working class people, that they decided just to redraw his district one day so that he didn't have one. That was how they got him out of Congress, because his constituents obviously loved Dennis Kucinich. Democrats do that. People say it's just Republicans that participate in gerrymandering, redrawing districts. Democratic Party does it too. So that's how they got him out. Let's continue. Mr. Kennedy's new campaign manager is Amaryllis Fox Kennedy, a former CIA agent, memoirist, and documentarian who in 2018 married Mr. Kennedy's son, Robert F. Kennedy III. Amaryllis is a woman of extraordinary intelligence and drive who I'm confident will take this campaign to the next level, Mr. Kennedy said in the news release. Ms. Kennedy has already been on the campaign payroll, according to the campaign's financial report covering the 3-month period ending September 30th, which was filed with the FEC on Friday. Ms. Kennedy's social media is a hodgepodge of condemnations of American support for and involvement in overseas wars, along with her critical reporting about the country's fight to eradicate illegal drugs. She also posted a eulogy of her family's parrot, Toots. She revealed little about her prior involvement in Mr. Kennedy's presidential campaign beyond a July Instagram post urging followers to watch a 35-minute speech of his. Mr. Kucinich, a former Democratic congressman who twice ran for president himself, has been with Mr. Kennedy a leading jab skeptic and a purveyor of conspiracy theories since he began his run for office in April. He introduced Mr. Kennedy at the Philadelphia rally where Mr. Kennedy announced his independent bid. So that is something else I want to bring up. He was present at the rally in Philadelphia, which was October 9th, a couple days ago. Dennis Kucinich was present there at that RFK rally. So this split is very recent. So I wonder what happened after that rally. Mr. Kucinich confirmed in a brief interview on Friday afternoon, before the campaign release came out, that he was no longer Mr. Kennedy's campaign manager. He said that he would not discuss any internal communications of the campaign. And that right there lets me know, I really believe, if I had to make a guess, I really believe the fallout is probably over the Israel-Palestine issue. Because what you have to understand, even when he signed on to be RFK Jr.'s campaign manager, and even after those interviews that RFK's had where he's had those horrible talking points in reference to this particular conflict, they were not at war. This was all before the attack from Hamas. This is all before, the airstrikes from Israel. Now it's a different ballgame. And I sincerely wonder if maybe Dennis Kucinich sat back and he said, wait a minute, guy, you do realize that the Palestinians in Gaza are basically trapped. Egypt won't let them come in. They said they can't take 2 million people in. Also, I would argue that Egypt knows that what Israel's trying to do, that they want them out of there. So they have nowhere to go. Now the stakes are higher. And I had wondered for quite some time, how long is Dennis Kucinich going to stand there and be a part of this campaign while RFK Jr. is making these talking points that he's making? Because I knew Dennis Kucinich didn't feel that way and didn't believe that. Not saying you got to agree with every single thing, but that particular issue is a big one. And RFK Jr. has been going on to multiple shows telling a lot of lies about the history of the conflict, about Palestinian people, smearing Palestinians, getting very little pushback from what I can see. And I think the first time I really realized it was the Glenn Greenwald interview. And I was like, whoa, what is up with this guy? And Glenn really was trying to push him and like, what do you mean? So I wondered how long Dennis Kucinich would stick around. But now they're at war. And I am seeing people split over this. I'm seeing people have friendships end over this conflict. It goes on to say, In the message to campaign staff members sent earlier on Friday, Mr. Kucinich praised the work of the powerful team that was ready to take the campaign in a new direction. He added that patriotic goal is within sight, and I urge each of you to hold fast. And I don't think Dennis Kucinich is the type of person to spill the beans, you know. He's not a TMZ kind of dude, I don't think. I don't think he is. I don't think he's the type of person to say, look, I was a part of this campaign and let me tell you what really went down. I don't think he is that way. But what was surprising to me is that if the press secretary didn't know about it, it makes you wonder if Dennis left on his own. Because it could be either way. It says Dennis Kucinich leaves, but it also says that RFK Jr. appointed his daughter-in-law, who's former CIA, as the campaign manager. So it could have also been that RFK said, I think she'll be better for the job. We don't know for sure, right? But I'm going to make a guess and say maybe Dennis was the one that made the decision. Now, if Dennis was the one that made the decision, I think this particular interview here could have been the reason why. Let me go to this link here. Now, I know I've shown this before, but like I said, this story was kind of tossed in last minute because I saw it go live and I was like, what? But I want to show this again because I wonder, this interview was this week. It was October 10th and I posted it the same day. And I wonder if this is what did it. Listen to this.
All of us saw the videos on social media of children in cages in Gaza, of Jewish bodies, of a teenage girl being abused in front of a crowd and people cheering, of, you know, bodies being paraded around in trucks. So to say that Israel is at fault for that is just perverse. And then if you look at the history of the region, anybody who, you know, believes that narrative, which is a propaganda narrative, should go look at Prince Bandar bin Sultan's speech in 2020. He was a great champion. He was the head of the Saudi intelligence. He was at all the peace negotiations. He's a huge champion, lifelong champion of the Palestinian people. And what he said again and again, the Palestinians have been betrayed by their leadership. You know, Yasser Arafat died a billionaire. Mahmoud Abbas, the current leader of the Palestinian Authority, is a billionaire. His sons are 100 millionaires. They keep their people in poverty. Again and again, the Israelis have offered peace on extremely generous terms. You know, the Ehud Barak and
this is a lie. And I'm going to show you in just a second.
2000 offered again and again. 1937, 1947, 2000, the Israelis have wanted to trade peace for land. And they, again and again, the Palestinian leadership has betrayed its own people by refusing to even negotiate about that or refusing to a counteroffer.
Okay, so there have been a couple of interviews that he's done that kind of just that really pissed me off with this talking point. But that one in particular was a new talking point I heard from him, that Israel tried to pursue peace. That is actually false. And Useful Idiots debunk this. And there's also articles that debunk this as well. We got to go back to the 2002 Arab peace negotiation. Listen to this.
Israel, if it wanted to, could have had peace, not just with Saudi Arabia, but all the Arab states and also Iran. And the Palestinian territories more than 2 decades ago, because in 2002, the Arab League endorsed what's called the Arab Peace Initiative, which basically the deal was get Israel to withdraw from all the occupied territories, the West Bank and Gaza, let a Palestinian state be created there, have a just resolution to the Palestinian refugee issue, and in return, all the Arab states will recognize Israel fully. Hamas later on tacitly accepted this proposal, not formally, but they tacitly accepted by saying they would accept a state within the pre-1967 borders, which means.
Did you guys hear that?
You're not going to oppose a state within Israel's recognized borders of pre-1967. Israel, if it wanted to.
So, and I looked that up, and I had Eric had the article on here. We showed it on another show, but we went through the article that explained what that peace initiative was. This could have been handled back in 2002 if they really wanted peace. I've interviewed multiple people on this topic. I've interviewed Miko Palid. I just interviewed Kim Iverson about this topic as well. That's a pretty deep interview. And if you want to hear more about the history of how things started, Kim and I got into that today. So she's really knowledgeable about it as well. I'm interviewing Katie Halper next week. So I've talked to a number of people about this particular issue. And it's really interesting to me that there's certain people, if you notice, that RFK Jr. is not willing to have this conversation with about this particular issue. And so I sincerely wonder if it was that interview that just happened on Fox News that happened October 10th, if that is what may have pushed Dennis Kucinich over the edge and he said, you know what, I can't do this, bud. If you're going to be going on to all these different shows, spewing these talking points, I can't rock with you no more, bud. So I wonder if that's what did it. Hugo said he never went on Max Blumenthal's channel. Nope. He didn't go on Useful Idiots either. These are just things that, again, we got to pay attention to. But again, breaking news, Dennis Kucinich has officially left RFK Jr.'s campaign, and his new campaign manager is his daughter-in-law, who is a former CIA. Honey, when I tell you that 2024 is going to be wild, believe me, 2024 is going to be wild. It's not over yet. Well, we talked about Jink running for president too. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And then there's one more piece. Actually, no. I'll show that later. I'll show that with the next story. Let me go to some of the comments here. Thank you so much for the super sticker, Aaron. Thank you, Tom. I think you mean go read the books they are trying to ban so we don't know the truth about anything. I like the way you think, Tom. Thank you, John. Sabby, need people with an audience like you for stage 1. This isn't your generic fly-by-night protest idea. For details, at Stoops the Cat. Gotta go. Out of Meowie. Okay. All right. I don't know. Okay. I get it. Just email me, John. My email's in the description of the videos. Thank you, Janice. Difference between Kucinich and Squat is he actually has principles and stood for his ideals, unlike the Squat, who betrayed all once they got theirs. Thank you, Andrea. RFK Jr. is too smart of a man to really believe this BS. I know, right? I'll take the comment on Rockfin and we'll get to our next story. It's the rock to the fin. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Let's always lead with and remind them there are more Palestinians killed by the IDF than Israelis killed by Hamas. Bingo. And people look at those numbers, they're like, damning. Sorry, I have to do something with this shirt. Like, part of it wants to stay up and part of it doesn't. Stop it. Stop moving. Scoot. I don't understand why this happens. Like, this side is not moving, but the other side is. Hold on. Okay, there we go. All right. Let's get into this next story here about Cornel West and Alan Dershowitz. So they actually had a pretty interesting debate on Fox News on Sean Hannity's show about this particular issue over Israel and Palestine. So I was interested to see this. Someone emailed this to me and I was like, okay, hopefully this will be a teaching moment for some. Yes? No? Yes. One thing I will say that I did not like about this debate, Hannity, if you are the moderator and people are debating, you need to let people finish what they're saying and stop interrupting them. I told you guys it's hard for me to watch interviews that he does because he constantly interrupts people. I don't like that. I don't like that type of dialogue. You know, it is what it is. But let's go ahead and get into this debate here with Cornel West and Alan Dershowitz.
Thank you. We'll check back in with him throughout the evening tonight. First, left-wing bigotry, anti-Semitism running rampant on university campuses around the world, London, Australia. What's happening? Chanting in Australia, about gas chambers and, for Jewish people. What is happening?
Pause. Let me read to you what this says. Harvard students scramble to take back support for letter attacking Israel as some CEOs look to blacklist them. Guys, do you see what this is about? We have CEOs out there looking to blacklist students to prevent them from getting jobs because of their decision, because of what they said in that letter about the apartheid. You see how deep this goes? That's why I tell you, people say we have free speech. We don't have free speech in this country. I hear you, Pamela. Pamela said, what the F is going on? Exactly. These are kids. They're students. They're trying to blacklist students. And this is all happening under Joe Biden's presidency. But we don't have fascism under Joe Biden. Let's continue.
Happening on our college campuses. What is happening among the Democratic Party? Some Harvard students now are scrambling to finally rescind their support of their vile letter, actually blaming the victim, Israel, for the brutal Hamas terror attacks. Not everyone disagrees with them. 2024 presidential candidate, former Harvard professor Cornel West said the students were largely right, but they lack nuance.
Let me pause there. I want you to pay attention to what he's doing. Notice who they're calling the victim. Notice that they don't see the Palestinian people as victims at all. And I mean, before this attack, I mean, when Palestinians were dragged out of their homes, imprisoned, they didn't see them as victims. They don't see brown Muslim people as victims, period. Whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Iran, whether it's, Syria, whether it's Jordan, they don't see these people as victims. They see them as part of the problem. This goes back to this perception that if you are not white and Christian, you're looked at with a side eye. Let's continue.
He joins us now with reaction, along with attorney, also Harvard professor Alan Dershowitz is with us. Thank you both for being with us. You always call me Brother Sean. I call you Brother Cornel. I'm not that happy with you tonight.
I understand. We could talk about why
because we have 31 groups from Harvard. Harvard's supposed to be, I always thought, the top of the top. To get into Harvard, what an accomplishment, what an achievement, what academic excellence you must show. A cut above everyone else. And 31 student groups blaming Israel, blaming the victim. And you're...
Let me pause. You hear this, right? So it's 31 student groups, not 31 students. Someone tweeted 31 students. I'm like, nah, it's 31 student groups. If it's 31 student groups, what does that tell you about the young people today? It tells you that they're waking up. They're waking up to something a lot faster. It took some of us longer, right? Like they have social media. They're getting information from TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. They're also more likely to be well-traveled. They're more likely to have travel experiences. They're more likely to travel abroad and to have those experiences with different people and to see the interactions and what is really happening on the ground. People are waking up.
Your answer to this is they are largely right. Hamas that murdered children, Hamas that murdered innocent people.
Read the rest of what I said, though, brother.
Okay.
Read the rest of what I
they
said.
are largely right, but lacking nuance.
No, I didn't say lack nuance. That's the title of the piece.
Okay.
My actual words were, I'll just be very honest.
I got it here in front of me.
The words too. The words were that Israel's policies of war crimes and collective punishment against Palestinians
I'll read
set
it
a
to you.
context,
Israel and the United
and
States
Hamas
are
must take
primarily
responsibility
responsible.
for killing innocent people. Anybody who kills innocent people are engaging in barbaric acts.
You said
no matter
Israel,
who they
hang
are,
on, let me
what
quote
color,
you.
what nation, and so forth.
Israel and the United States are primarily
And the United States has
responsible.
supported and enabled.
You explain to this audience. I want you to explain. How is Israel and the United States responsible for beheading 40 children? How?
So there's that lie again. Now, it was brought to my attention when I shared a clip of this on Twitter. It was brought to my attention that this was, I guess, took place before it was debunked. That's what I've been told by people. So just keep that in mind. But notice how he's constantly like interrupting, not trying to let him get the point across, etc. These are things to pay close attention to.
I'm talking about the context. 545 Palestinian children died in August 2004. Not one American said a word. I believe a Palestinian baby has the same value as an Israeli baby. So when you have that kind of vicious hatred and revenge, you get response of hatred and revenge. They are all wrong. They're all war crimes. They're all to be condemned. But you cannot simply look at this particular moment without the larger backdrop of an ugly occupation and the ugly attacks chronically against Palestinians.
Those are not your.
Let me pause here for just a second. The fact that Dr. West has to repeatedly say, and I say repeatedly because he said this multiple times on different interviews, the fact that Dr. West has to repeatedly say that the life of a Palestinian baby is just as precious as the life of an Israeli baby. You know what that reminds me of? That reminds me of those documentaries that I watched back in the day when I was growing up in school, where they were talking about separate but equal and Brown versus Board of Education. And it reminds me of the doll test. Have you guys ever heard of the baby doll test? So one of the things that Brown versus Board of Education was able to do, which I think really had a astounding impact on the decision of the court, they were able to prove that through separate but equal, number one, it wasn't equal. The resources and the facilities weren't equal. But two, that Black kids actually had a lower self-esteem and self-worth because they had less. The way that they proved this was through the baby doll test. So they brought baby dolls into the courtroom, and they had kids, Black kids, and they had a white baby doll, Black baby doll. You can look this up. It's on Google. There's still articles about it. And they had the kid point to the doll that's pretty. Point to the doll that's ugly. Point to the doll that's smart. Point to the doll that's not smart. And what the court found is that all of the negative types, every time the Black kids pointed to the Black doll, everything that was positive, Black kids pointed to the white doll. So when they said point to the baby doll that's pretty, it was always the white doll. Through the help of people like Thurgood Marshall and psychologists, they were able to prove that separate but equal not only wasn't equal, but that it also had a damaging psychological impact on Black kids living in Jim Crow South. So when Cornel West says that a Palestinian baby is just as precious as an Israeli baby, you know what that tells me? That tells me that even in 2023, this has to be said, because even in 2023, people just don't seem to have that same type of sympathy and empathy for those that have darker skin. And this isn't just an assumption. This has been proven through multiple studies, time. Even when it comes to things like health, right? So when we talk about healthcare, this has also been proven. You go to the emergency room, if you're Black, they're less likely to have sympathy for you if you're in pain versus someone who is white. In 2023, we still have to say that today. And the fact that Dr. West has to sit there and explain that to people, that tells you that this country is still bigoted as hell, still racist as hell, and that things really haven't improved as much as you think they have. Let me let him finish. Let me go back just a little bit because I cut off that part. Sorry. There we go.
But you cannot simply look at this particular moment without the larger backdrop of an ugly occupation and the ugly attacks chronically against Palestinians.
Those are not your words. Largely right. Israel and the United States are primarily responsible for this attack. Professor Dershowitz.
Well, I complained when Palestinian children were killed, but I explained why they were killed. Here is one of the leaders of Hamas. For the Palestinian people, death has become an industry. The elderly excel at this, and so do the children. This is why we have formed human shields of the women and the children. Hamas is the ones responsible for the killing of Palestinian children.
No, they're not. Who pulled the trigger? You see, again, this is another way not to put the blame where it belongs.
Also, the Hamas has a term. It's called the CNN strategy. And the CNN strategy is induce Israel into killing Palestinian children by using them as human shields. Then parade the bodies out on CNN, and you'll see what happens. People like Cornel West will engage in crocodile tears, blame it on Israel, when the entire blame is on the Palestinians, Hamas, for using their children as human shields, and then using their children as shields to permit the killing of Israeli
don't accuse me.
Again, that was not confirmed. Here we go.
Is on the Palestinians, Hamas, for using their children as human shields, and then using their children as shields to permit the killing of Israeli
don't accuse me.
What is Hamas's charter?
I have the same outrage when Palestinian babies are killed, when Jewish babies or Israeli babies. I want you to have.
Did you just hear that? Pay very close attention to what Alan Dershowitz says. See, he don't see them as equal. Pay close attention to this, guys. And I hope everyone who watched this debate noticed this part right here.
Using their children as shields to permit the killing of Israeli.
Don't accuse me.
What is Hamas's charter?
I have the same outrage when Palestinian babies are killed, when Jewish babies or Israeli babies. I want you to have.
Cornel West said, I have the same outrage when Palestinian babies are killed and when Israeli babies are killed. Alan Dershowitz's response is, it shouldn't be the same outrage. This is on national TV. Alan Dershowitz, the same guy who represented Jeffrey Epstein, by the way. Okay. Shouldn't be the same outrage. Same guy who was on Epstein's Island. Yes, he was. He has confirmed that through the interview he did with Kim Iverson. How disgusting is that? It should not be the same, he's telling you. So Alan Dershowitz is telling you, according to him, you need to value one group's life over the other because of the way that the events transpired. But see, I seem to remember that when Cornel West brought up the fact that he wants to make sure we tackle the issue of white supremacy in this country, I seem to remember quite a few people not liking that too much and saying, don't focus on race. You hear this stuff that's being said on the show? Let's continue.
Have the same indignation when Palestinians are killed.
Not when they're killed. Not when they're killed by Palestinians. You can't make a moral comparison. When Nazi kids were killed in the bombings of Dresden, I didn't have the same comparison when Jewish kids were put in gas chambers and crematoriums. You're a professor of theology, don't you?
It just seems like to me that you have a favoritism over one group than the other, because I look at it like this. If a child, especially we're talking about children, if a child is killed, my sympathy and compassion for their loss of life is not based on how they lost their life. You get what I'm saying? If a child is killed, my sympathy and compassion is not based on how they lost their life. It's based on the fact that a child lost their life. And I had to raise my voice with that one because this is ridiculous. You would think out of all the people, whether it's a man, a woman, adults, you would think when it comes to kids, that everybody has that compassion. Regardless of what color the child is, what nationality, what religion, what country they live in. You would think that everyone would have compassion for the death of a child. And here we go. We got this old dude on here who was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Hello. And he here telling you, I did not have the same sympathy for this child versus that child. What happened on that island, Alan? What happened on that island? You got to remember who's talking here. Let's continue. We'll go back a little bit. This was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting.
The bombings of Dresden, I didn't have the same comparison when Jewish kids were put in gas chambers and crematoriums. You're a professor of theology. Don't you understand the moral difference between deliberately murdering a kid and having collateral damage because there are human shields? You're running for president of the United States. What would you do?
Let me. Is it collateral damage when I see them beating Palestinian kids in the street? That's not collateral damage. For years, I've seen these videos. I've seen these kids beaten in the street, killed. That's not collateral damage. When you grab someone and you beat them, that is not collateral damage. You singled them out. Alan Dershowitz wants to avoid all of that. He don't want to focus on it. He wants you to believe that all of the attacks that have happened to the Palestinian people is because of Hamas. That's bullshit. There is racism. There is the goal of establishing an ethno-state. And they want them gone, period. That is what this is about. And Alan Dershowitz doesn't want to admit that.
Let me ask the question.
Okay.
What would you do if terrorists were firing at American children in America and the terrorists were hiding behind Palestinian children? Would you allow the killing of Americans to continue, or would you go and get the terrorists, even if it meant possibly collateral damage on?
There was no confirmation that they were hiding behind children. I watched them demolish a hospital, a school. Like, this stuff has been happening over years. Residential buildings, apartment buildings.
Palestinians, what would you do?
I'll tell you exactly what I would do. First, truth and morality tend to be 2 casualties in any context of war. I would want to tell the American people the truth. I would tell them what the context is, how we found ourselves in this situation. I would not jump for a military invasion and a genocidal attack on a
genocidal attack
on Gaza.
No, it's not a genocidal
where are they supposed to go?
When you're
where are they
killing
supposed to
terrorists.
go? This is like
it is a genocidal attack. I'm glad that Cornel West said that on national television, because it really is. Like I told you, they have nowhere to go. They can't leave. They're told to leave, but Egypt's border is closed. It's not like they can just bust through the gates of Gaza. They can't do that. So they are essentially trapped. So yes, when people like Lindsey Graham says, oh, just flatten the whole thing, Lindsey Graham is letting you know that he doesn't care about those people either. He's saying just get rid of them.
Like Warsaw, 1943. Where do they go?
Where do they go?
Yes.
Let me tell you where they go. They go to the UN. UN is keeping
from Gaza to Geneva?
They go to no. The UN has places in Gaza. They go to the Rafah crossing.
UN people have been killed in the last few days.
They go to Egypt. They go.
Egypt, how they
wait
can't
a minute.
get out.
Let
Come
me
on,
make
brother.
another thing clear. Gaza City is very dense. But
Absolutely.
Gaza
It is
itself, the Gaza Strip, there's lots of room. The Israelis have said, get out of Gaza City. Go to Rafah. Go to Khan Yunis. Go to other places. And you know what Hamas
With
is
no
saying?
water, no
Wait
food,
a minute.
no electricity.
I'm going to show you a clip here. After this is done, I'm going to show you a clip of a woman who was trapped there. She was on CNN. And I'm going to let you hear what she had to say about what happened when she went to all of the places they told them to go to. Alan Dershowitz is lying.
You know what Hamas is saying? Hamas is saying, don't go.
Oh, I'm not here to defend Hamas.
Well, you are.
No, I'm not defending Hamas.
Wait a minute.
Don't you ever lie on me like that, brother. I'm defending the suffering of Palestinians.
I want to hear
Hamas itself committing war crimes.
I want to hear you say.
This was the, I haven't seen Cornel West get crunk like this in a while, except for that time when he was grilling Obama. But this part right here,
Khan Yunis, go to other places. And you know what Hamas is saying?
With no water, no food, no electricity.
You know what Hamas is saying? Hamas is saying, don't go.
Oh, I'm not here to defend Hamas.
Well, you are here.
I'm not.
See, this is what they're doing. If you don't come out unequivocally supporting and defending the state of Israel, they are now smearing you and saying that you support Hamas. If you come out and say we need to value the Palestinian lives too, they are smearing you and they are telling you that you support Hamas. That is what they're doing. And they're going to start calling Americans these terrorists and stuff too. This is what they're doing. Now, he made Cornel West mad here because he tried to smear him.
I'm not defending Hamas.
Wait a minute.
Don't you ever lie on me like that, brother.
You do it. When I saw this, I said, Dr. West, you go this, because look, I told you, I ain't seen him go hard like this in a while. He said, don't you ever lie on me like that. Ever.
I'm defending the suffering of Palestinians.
I want to hear
Hamas itself committing war crimes.
I want to hear you say
anybody who commits war crimes are barbaric. I'm saying that explicitly, but I want you to say if the Israeli Defense Forces are killing children, are they barbaric too?
No.
Are they ever barbaric?
No. If they target children,
yes. Have they ever targeted children?
Absolutely.
They have
never in the history.
78 years.
That is a lie. So Alan Dershowitz again is lying.
They ever targeted a child
you got to get off the crack pipe, man, please.
No, they never targeted a child.
They killed one innocent person?
Not purposely.
Since 1948?
Not
Are
purposely.
they that pure? Are they that
You don't have to be very pure.
Who is Alan Dershowitz protecting? Who is Alan Dershowitz protecting? He's seriously sitting up here telling this lie that they never targeted a child. Guys, it's all on video. We've seen videos of it multiple times. Who's he protecting? Who's he trying to look out for? Whose back is he trying to have? You guys need to ask this question. Who is he really trying to protect here? What's happening here with Alan Dershowitz? Again, Jeffrey Epstein's friend. Who was on that island with you, Alan? Why are you so angry about this? Why are you so defensive? And you're so certain that it was never attacked.
No,
They have
absolutely never in the history have they ever targeted a child
You got to get off
deliberately.
the crack pipe, man, please.
No, they have never
You don't
targeted
think
a child.
they killed one innocent person?
Not purposely.
Since
no.
1948?
No, not
Are they that
purposely.
pure? Are they that
You don't have to be
pristine?
very
Come
pure
on, brother,
not to kill a
please.
child. Not to kill a child.
Let me
They killed 550
let me show
Because
something.
they're being used as human shields.
Let me show something we showed in this program.
No. When they have raided Al-Aqsa Mosque and they went in there and they beat those people, there's video footage of that. I watched them beat kids in the street. There's videos of that. I watched them push this little boy off of the cliff. Listen, all of these things have been on video. Abby Martin has a really good documentary about this. Max Blumenthal has written a book about this. There's multiple things that you can actually watch to show you what's been happening to the Palestinian people. Essentially, the Palestinians have basically been treated like second-class citizens, but not citizens. Someone told me the other day, stop calling it an open-air prison because they're not criminals. They told me we need to refer to it as a concentration camp. The way the Palestinian people have been treated, and the video's still out there, guys. You can look, you can Google them. They're on Twitter. They're all over the place. Those videos are still around.
What I'm about to show this audience, these are cartoons that are air in Gaza for young children that are taught to hate the Jewish people.
Notice Hannity isn't going to show the cartoons that are shown to kids in Israel to hate the Palestinian people. And I got to be careful with this part because of YouTube. So let me fast forward. Yeah, because I'm not going to show, because YouTube will be funny, interested about that. So it's very one-sided. Now you got to ask yourself, why is it the Democratic Party and the Republican Party so quick to defend the state of Israel? Now, this is something where both parties have bipartisan support over. Why are they both so quick to come to the defense?
Wash and indoctrinate young children. That you're teaching them to hate from that young age. Not good.
No.
Here's the problem.
Any kind of
And I talked to some of my friends that have lived there and that have been there, and they'll tell you it's the same way on the other side as well. They'll tell you it's the same way. By the way, and just to make something very clear, even for people who are Jewish but are not, ethnically like white Jewish. So like the Ethiopian Jews that live there, they're not on the same level as the other Jewish people that live there. The Ethiopian Jews, I sold videos before on this channel where they have been smeared, where they've had racial epithets thrown at them, where they've been beaten, where they've been told to get out of the country. They've been called the N-word and everything and all that stuff. These videos exist. That's why I keep telling people this is not just about religion. Because if it was just about religion, they'd be totally fine with all the other people that are Jewish. There are Palestinians that are Jewish. Not everyone that's Palestinian that lives there is Muslim. It's not about that.
Problem of hatred is immoral and wrong.
Here's the problem I have with your
brothers
piece.
and others. If there's any hatred of anybody, Palestinians,
Would you condemn Black Lives Matter Chicago for justifying the Hamas murder by using these little airplane things and coming down on the music event?
But I want to hear. I would certainly condemn it.
You condemn Black Lives Matter.
I would condemn anybody.
Okay.
It's not a matter of
I'm
skin
glad to hear
pigment.
you.
This is morality and spirituality.
Okay,
brother.
so you condemn Black Lives Matter.
Part of our challenge, though, and this is important, just as
you see what Alan Dershowitz is doing. You condemn Black Lives Matter. Now, there have been multiple groups that have put out statements similar to the one of Black Lives Matter. Notice how he points to the black one. That's on purpose. And says it multiple times. You condemn Black Lives Matter. You condemn Black Lives Matter. Why does Cornel West have to condemn the black group, but Alan Dershowitz doesn't have to condemn the state of Israel and apartheid? Mm-hmm.
As a leader, you see, he asked me what I would do. I would say we've got to end occupation. We got to make sure that Palestinians have the same dignity, the same rights as Israelis.
Let me ask you a question.
That's at the center.
You know I support that. You know I support the two-state solution. But Hamas doesn't support.
You know I support a two-state solution. So we've had this conversation multiple times on the show. Kim and I talked about this as well. I told you guys at this point in time, a two-state solution would not be a viable option. And we've talked to the Palestinian Network about this as well. We interviewed them over on RBN, and they said there's no way because there's too many settlements at this point. So this is why I keep saying the two-state solution is no longer viable anymore at this point. There's too many settlements. Also, like I said before, they don't want them there. Like, what are you supposed to do? You have people in Gaza living behind a fence, which is not a border, by the way, living behind a fence. Then you have people in the West Bank, and now they want to come forward and say a two-state solution. If they were serious about having a real agreement or solution, they would have actually said yes to that Arab peace agreement in 2002. They didn't want it. This is what I'm trying to tell people. They want them gone.
It's a two-state solution. Hamas opposes
Professor West, I want to ask this question. Would Gaza be facing annihilation if Hamas did not attack and kill all these innocent Israelis?
Of course not.
Gaza has been facing
You're not answering.
chronic
Would they be
process
facing
of
imminent annihilation
since 2000.
Would they be facing imminent annihilation?
2000 what?
Since 2006 and 7, and Gaza was taken over by Hamas. I'm not pro-Hamas. I'm pro-democracy, but I'm concerned about the suffering of Palestinians.
Israel didn't fire a single rocket until Hamas fired 5,000 rockets.
Israel controls the land, the air,
only after Hamas took over.
The food going in, the trade coming in, and so.
You see what Alan Dershowitz is trying to do? He's trying to make excuses for the crimes that have been done by the state of Israel by pointing everything back to Hamas. And to Dr. West's point, Israel controls the resources. They control the food, the electricity. They control the water. The people in Gaza has 90% of the water is dirty water. So when we talk about electricity, that also applies to the hospitals that are there as well. So who has the power? Who's the one that actually has the resources? The person, the group that has the resources, that they're the ones that have the power. The group that controls the airways, they're the ones that have the power. If you control the land, the air, and the sea, and everything in between, you're the one that's in power. So what are the Palestinian people supposed? They have no power. They have no power, Alan. Because I'm sitting here and I'm listening to this conversation, and I've been listening to a couple of other ones too. And it's very clear to me, some of you who sit around and say, yes, it's a good thing that slavery is gone. It was a bad thing. Some of you would have had an issue with the Haitian slave rebellion. Some of you would have had an issue with that. How dare they? How dare they resist? You got to think about these things.
But it was already under occupation since 1967.
No. The occupation ended in 2005. Learn your history.
Oh.
Sharon left. Every American, every Israeli settler, every Israeli soldier left. In 2006, it was like Singapore. It could have been the nicest place in the Mediterranean. Then Hamas overthrew them.
New York would be under occupation if another country owned its air, its space,
it didn't
its food
own
going
it
in, its
between
trade.
2006 and 2008.
Let's be honest.
They put them behind a fence.
After Hamas
let
took over.
Let me end with this.
Yeah.
Here's a sad fact. This debate could not be held on Harvard's campus today.
That's
correct?
Right. That's right. I would not be allowed to speak at Harvard.
I am offering to go up to Harvard. I am offering to go up to Harvard and
let's do it.
And I will moderate it.
We've debated before on many
occasions. I don't think
Harvard
will let Professor Dershowitz or Professor Brother Hannity on campus.
Well, you could go with me.
Who cares about Harvard? Like the average American, yes, there was the article, the student groups, yada, yada, whatever. But that's not the only university that's happened at. Everyone keeps talking about the student groups and what they said at Harvard, but that's not the only university where student groups have spoken out in reference to this particular conflict and have taken the same side and same position that the students at Harvard did. The average American doesn't give a fuck about Harvard. Okay, the average American doesn't know about Harvard, has never been to Harvard, will never go to Harvard. They don't care. Why not take this conversation to the everyday working people in this country? Why do these conversations always have to happen on some elite Ivy League campus? I never understand this. So get that, Sean. You understand that? Let's be very clear. These conversations that happen among the people, not just at these elite academic institutions, because only certain people are at those schools and only certain people are paying attention to what's happening at those schools. Get your hands dirty, Sean. It's a hot mess. Everything's got to be, well, Harvard, they wouldn't let us come there and da-da-da-da. Now, I'm about to prove him wrong because there was this interview, and I think I've been raising my voice quite a bit tonight, so we will level it just a little bit. There was this interview that I want you to see of this woman that was stuck. Now, this young woman, she's Palestinian, she's American. So she's not living in Gaza, but she was visiting at that point in time. And I want you to hear what she had to say about how they were stuck. And this is what Alan Dershowitz is not telling people. This is what Cornel West was trying to say. Where are they supposed to go? Listen to this.
To leave any area near Hamas, which would be quite difficult since Hamas is embedded within the Palestinian population in Gaza. On Saturday night, I asked a spokesman for the Israeli Defense Forces just where Gazans are supposed to go, given the closed-off border that has made Gaza, in the words of a former British Prime Minister, essentially an open-air prison. Here's his response.
But they should go south, they can go towards the shore, and they can be in locations that are not close to Hamas facilities.
Okay, so you heard what he said. He told them where to go. Now listen to this woman here. So this is an American Palestinian woman, and she's going to tell you what happened when she tried to get out.
From Union County, New Jersey, she is currently stuck in Gaza City with her 3 children. They are 8, 2, and a 2-month-old. They cannot get out. Thank you so much for joining us. Has the U.S. Embassy been able to give you any help to get out?
Hi, how are you? Yes, we tried to contact the U.S. Embassy so many times. Unfortunately, they couldn't help us at all. I contacted them through the phone, via email, I texted, and I called different numbers, but nobody, I couldn't hear back from any. They said that we're gonna call you back within 24 hours or so on, couple hours, but they couldn't at all call us, or we didn't get any information from them. I submitted a form through the website, but that didn't work as well. And I don't know with what happened with areas crossing border and what happening with the Rafah border. I don't know if we're gonna make it, but I am absolutely looking forward to the help of the U.S. Embassy. We are all here feeling abandoned, and we're feeling that we're left alone. So we're really looking for the U.S. Embassy to help the U.S. citizens who are living in Gaza.
That was just an Israeli airstrike that we just heard?
Yes.
That was just an Israeli airstrike that we just heard?
A what?
That we just heard a sound like a bomb or a missile. Is that what we just heard?
Yes. That's happening 24 hours. All time, they're bombing all around, from south to north. to the center of Gaza, everywhere. Bombing is everywhere.
Your
honestly.
kids, how are they doing with that?
It's terrible. My kids are very scared and they're afraid of what's going on. I have to explain all the time. I have to calm them down and trying to make them feel comfortable, safe, and trying to make them busy with other things so they can't feel afraid or scared. But like they are, like what happened with me, for example, today,
Yeah.
I was trying to get out from Gaza. I was going to Rafah border and
let me just pause there. That was one of the locations that Alan Dershowitz mentioned. Like they told them to go to Rafah, right? Okay. Listen to what she says.
While we're going there, we tried multiple ways to get out of Gaza, going to Rafah, to the south. We couldn't make it at all. So my son saw all the locations, destroyed his favorite places. He was shocked with what he saw. So we had to see all that, and we had to go through what we say. Okay. So it was like, you know, you're going to death. Yes.
There needs to be a way for you to get out. I mean, you're not Hamas. You're an innocent person, and you have 3 kids. You need to be able to get out.
But the majority of the Palestinian people there are not Hamas. That's the thing. That's just it. Not just this woman who is Palestinian American. And that's the point that I want to get across to people. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I wanted you to hear that part about how she tried to go. They went to those exit routes that they were told to go to. And she said every one that they got to, there was no way to get out. So people needed to hear that. And Alan Dershowitz needs to hear that. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. I'm surprised they actually had that on CNN, to be honest. I really do think a lot of it's because of the push. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Unfortunately, even today's post-segregation, we still think their ice is colder, but that is because we still have no ice. Why? Because we can't afford freezers. Fortunately, Fox, MSNBC, and CNN are all dying a slow death. And as this happens, the democratization of our media and hopefully government in the form of CBIs and worker co-ops is breaking the gatekeepers back. Break down the gates. Dersh is a dirtbag. Thank you for this as well. If Dersh doesn't shut up, Wes is going to pull Kim Iverson out of his pocket, having her chase Dersh around the studio. Interview me again, Dersh. Give me another interview. Keep that crazy woman away from me. I didn't touch those girls. Hey, Sean, come to the hood to debate. Might as well. Fox is going under anyway. Remember when that woman I picked up, I took to her job at Fox and Friends, admitted Sab? That's right. I remember you picked up someone that worked at Fox and Friends, and she admitted that they were already going under. I remember. Let me go to the comments here. TMB says those Temu shirts. No, this one's from Shein. This one's from Shein, but I did have some stuff from Temu. I don't buy from them anymore though, because I would put it in the wash machine and then it would just tear up. Thank you, Roger. They should join and start a worker co-op. Screw Goldman Sachs. And thank you, Cindy. Sabby Sab sent me a coffee cup. Doobie doobie doo. Aha, you got it. Yeah. All right. We have another debate coming up. We're going to go into this story here about Briahna Joy Gray and ROBBIE. I want you guys to see this. Now, this gets pretty testy, but Briahna Joy Gray and ROBBIE Sav actually had similar discussion on Rising about, you know, what can be done here. Not necessarily like who started it, so to speak, but they started off this conversation discussing how the beheaded babies thing was debunked and so many news outlets like ran with that story. Now, this conversation took a turn that I was not expecting. And this is the first time I think I saw ROBBIE actually yell like that. So prepare yourself, but it's coming. Let's go ahead and get into this discussion here with Bree and Robbie. Oh, hold on to your seats.
Every interest in validating a horrific attack from Hamas against Israeli citizens as they are looking for international support, etc. The fact that they were unwilling to confirm the reports, I think, was a pretty significant red flag. And then the fact that there were, as the lie was spreading all across social media, being picked up, CNN said they confirmed it. CNN said they confirmed it midday yesterday, and that it made it all the way to the White House and out of Joe Biden's lips. And then that lie transformed it from just there were 40 beheaded babies to I saw personally evidence of 40 beheaded babies. People jumped online saying, I told you so. You guys were trying to deny the cruelty of Hamas. I told you so. Because the president said it, a president who is so known for being a serial fabulist that his moniker is literally Lion Biden.
Yeah, Biden clearly got this one wrong. This rumor that has floated on social media and that several mainstream news organizations have grappled with is not in fact confirmed. They said it's one of those we talked to someone who saw it kind of thing. Biden has a long history of exaggerations, outright lies. In fact, he had to exit his first presidential campaign after plagiarizing a British politician's speech. He's made misstatements about the circumstances of Beau Biden's death. Him and other political figures, including Hillary Clinton and media figures, often have said things about how they were, close to the danger when they visited combat zones. Remember the whole helicopter or plane or whatever it was coming under fire that Hillary Clinton talked about. So just because conservatives know this, just because Biden says it does not make it true, and his own White House is not backing it up.
I would argue if Biden's saying it is probably not true.
With this story, it's not like it doesn't need to be true in order for the attacks to be horrific. The violence is horrific. There are bodies lining the streets. There are bullet-ridden corpses. Women died. Children died. It was an unprovoked attack on innocent, defenseless civilians, many of whom have been taken captive, and their lives are now being threatened. So it doesn't. This does not need to be true in order for this attack to rise to the level of.
What is the advantage? Because I have a theory of making up something like this.
So here's what I think the advantage is, and some of you may remember this. If I remember correctly, wasn't there a similar story about, beheaded children, something similar to that, right before the Iraq war? If I remember correctly. And when you use children, obviously that's going to invoke some type of emotion to people, right? Now, it should, I would say. So then obviously that's one thing that first is probably going to touch mothers, because women tend to be, nurturing, that kind of thing. So then you have the mothers, and then you have the fathers that also feel that same type of a similar effect from the mother. And it kind of riles up people, not just internally, but it riles up people to a sense that, oh, heck no, we have to go save those children. Now, this goes back to the same rhetoric that we hear, or at least I've heard with multiple wars in my lifetime. We have to save the women and the children. And what I've said before, obviously with war, there's civilian casualties. And if it was really about saving the women and the children, you wouldn't have war in the first place. You would call for peace, right? But of course, they're not going to say that because there's no profit in peace. There's profit in war. Now, I believe the reason why they ran with this narrative, and they didn't have confirmation and no one apparently had seen it, is because, again, it was a similar narrative to that, if I remember correctly, before the Iraq war, which prompted the U.S. government to say, well, we have to go in and act because we have to save the children. And I believe that this is being used again this time around, and it was spread all over different media outlets. And second of all, I really believe that the U.S. government is going to try to find this particular situation to use this as an excuse to go to war with Iran. Because they can say that Iran funded Hamas, and they'll use the excuse of the babies plus that together to say, well, we have to go after Iran now. And then you'll see another war. But let's continue.
What is your theory? Well, I mean, I don't know who, I think, I don't know who initiated the rumor. We heard something about injured children being moved from one location to another. I think that might be the genesis of it. If that is true, I don't know, but go ahead.
And to be clear, this lie has been parroted everywhere. I referenced in a different segment that there was a debate between Cornel West and Alan Dershowitz on Fox last night. One of the things that Dershowitz used to try to win the argument against Cornel West, who was arguing for the shared horror, the indiscriminate horror of dead children, whether they be Palestinian lives or precious Israeli lives. Dershowitz says, well, what about the 40 beheaded babies? And that, I think, is a clue to what that particular kind of a rumor does. If you have a tragic mass of death on both sides, including multitudes more Palestinians who have been killed over the last 10, 15 years than Israelis who have been killed. And children, Palestinian children, a much bigger, horrible, tragic, disgusting pile of Palestinian bodies, then you have to find a way to distinguish why those kind of raw numbers and why all of the children and the tragedy shouldn't be treated equally. And we see words like barbaric, barbarism.
I mean, because it was barbaric.
Flung around. But the barbarism, the inhumanity of bombing children in Palestine is not described in those same words. What you need to do is find a language that makes it feel like there's something different to the character of it when an Israeli child is killed versus when a Palestinian child is killed.
You have to find the type of vocabulary that will evoke enough emotion in people that will get the people riled up enough to the point where the U.S. can say, okay, we got to go in because we got to save the women and the children. A vocabulary is very important, particularly in times of war.
But a Palestinian child is killed, and we heard this from Dershowitz and many other defenders of the indiscriminate killing of Palestinian children. Well, it must be the case that Hamas was using them as a human shield. It must be the case that a Hamas missile was located close to those children and it could not be helped. And on the other side, we're being told that Palestinians are keeping Israeli children in cages and decapitating them by the dozens. Neither which rumor turned out to be true. And yet in the middle of a tragedy,
and the children in the cages, the pictures that were shown of the children in the cages, those were actually Palestinian children.
That needed no embellishment to make the case for why Hamas's acts are horrible and tragic. There is still this embellishment, and I believe it is rooted in a desire to strip humanity from the people of Palestine and justify doing what Max Miller and a number of other officials in the Israeli government have said,
Max Miller is an obscure Republican official.
Oh, here he goes. Buckle your seatbelt, ladies and gentlemen. And really quick, if you have not had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. That helps me out with the algorithm. Here he goes. Robbie's about to take off. I think Bree went on too long for Robbie, so he's about to...
by doing what Max Miller and a number of other officials in the Israeli government have said,
Max Miller is an obscure Republican official. It does not matter what he says.
So every leftist, wait a minute, Robbie, every leftist in America was asked to apologize for some random protest.
They should apologize. They should apologize for their endorsement of terrorist attacks on innocent Israeli civilians, just as I am outraged by the retaliatory actions that are killing innocent Palestinian children everywhere. I care about both of these things and have said I care about both of these things over and over again. It is you and the idiotic, leftist, terrorist sympathizing people who do not care about the dead Israelis. They don't.
Look, let me tell you something. I can tell when he was about to snap because he did like the, hold on. Can I just say something really quick? You guys know that one person, like there's always like that one person that for the most part just is not a yeller. That's not really a part of their character, right? Like they may, be firm, but they're not like a yeller. And then there's like that one time where they do kind of yell and go off and everybody just goes, everyone's creeped out and is like, what the fuck just happened? And it's not because, that people aren't allowed to yell, but it's when those people yell, when you hear them go off, it's like, oh my God, what is happening? What's going on? Or it could be like the quiet kid that was in school. And then one day he just snaps and just yells at everybody. And was like, oh my God, what the fuck? Like it's that kind of thing, right? So let me tell you, I'm going to show you when he was about to go off. Hold on. Because he did the eye roll. And see, for some people, the eye roll is not much. But let me show you how this is a different type of eye roll.
Hamas was using them as a human shield. It must be the case that a Hamas missile was located close to those children and it could not be helped. And on the other side, we're being told that Palestinians are keeping Israeli children in cages and decapitating them by the dozens. Neither which rumor turned out to be true. And yet in the middle of a tragedy that needed no embellishment to make the case for why Hamas.
So the first thing I notice is he's been fidgeting with this pen. So this is the anger and frustration starting to build up inside. He's fiddling with the pen, just FYI. So it's coming. Just wait for it.
Hamas's acts are horrible and tragic. There is still this embellishment, and I believe it is rooted in a desire to strip humanity from the people of Palestine and justify doing what Max Miller and a number of other officials in the Israeli government have said,
Max
which
Miller
is to flatten.
is an obscure Republican official. It does not matter what he says.
So every leftist.
Right there. So he did the eye roll. Okay. And typically when the eye roll comes in, if the conversation would have ended, that probably would have been the end of it, right? But Robbie's like one of the more preppier like dudes. Like, I don't know. I went to college with dudes like this. He's like one of the preppier, like white dudes that's probably for the most part is pretty chill. And then when he does go off, it's kind of like, whoa, what the fuck? Dude's crazy. What's happening? Right. But he did the eye roll. So the chill kind of, people, preppy kind of people or whatever, when they do the eye roll, there's something else coming. I'm telling you from experience. Watch out for the chill dude eye roll.
Wait a minute, Robbie. Every leftist in America was asked to apologize for some random protest.
They should apologize. They should apologize for their endorsement of terrorist attacks on.
There it is. There it is.
Innocent Israeli civilians, just as I am outraged by the retaliatory actions that are killing innocent Palestinian children everywhere. I care about both of these things and have said I care about both of these things over and over again. It is you and the idiotic
So I don't know if he was going to call us fat leftists or fascist leftists. That's the part I wasn't sure about. There was are we the fat leftists? Are we the fascist leftists? I didn't know where he was going with that. But you see, he's like, his face it looks like he's starting to turn a little red. It's all coming out now. And I have a feeling Robbie's probably been holding this in for quite some time. It's the people. My mom always told me, let it out. It's the people who hold it in and then they finally explode. And people are like, what the fuck is wrong with dude? What just happened? So, it's just all a lot of look at the face and everything. This is when people get scared.
Leftist, terrorist sympathizing people who do not care about the dead Israelis. They don't.
So I'm a terrorist.
And they've said it over and over again. Black Lives Matter has said it. The Harvard students have said it. The DSA in various locations have said it. The left endorses what Hamas did. They do. They endorse.
Ooh, man. I don't know. Maybe Robbie just had a bad morning, but this was pretty. By the way, if Bree would have reacted this way, I think we know there would have been a difference in reference to how people saw this.
The Harvard newspaper said exactly what the editorial page of Israel's major newspaper said.
I don't give a
So if you notice, Bree is still remaining very calm. So Robbie is, when people start lashing out on you like this, the best thing that you can do is remain calm, because he all in his emotions right now. And sometimes when you get really emotional like that and you're having it during a debate, it can kind of make people not really pay attention to what you're saying, because they're just looking at it's all driven by emotion, right? So it just, she's saying that the Harvard newspaper, the students of Harvard newspaper, that basically the New York Times said the same thing. And so he doesn't really care about that, but this is, this is the Robbie angst coming out.
Locations have said it. The left endorses what Hamas did. They do. They endorse it.
The Harvard newspaper said exactly what the editorial page of Israel's major newspaper said.
I don't give a Brianna.
Okay, well, that's clear that that's your opinion. But the Israeli voices in Israel who are getting killed because their fascist right-wing government decides to keep 2.3 million
The Israelis are getting killed
people.
because a terrorist group targeted them. And they bear responsibility for what they did.
Well, Robbie, if you think you know more than Israelis in Israel, then you can feel free to have your position. But the position of Israelis who are the ones that are being victimized by this terrorism is that the fact of stripping the rights of 2.3 million people in an apartheid state on their border are conditions
Justify terrorist attacks on civilians in those towns.
Do you think that justifies?
Notice how he cuts off when people start to see. This is just a common trend that I noticed when people start to talk about the struggle that the Palestinians have been dealing with for years. The other person wants to interrupt them and bring it back to the state of Israel.
As terrorist attacks?
No.
Well, I don't either. So why do you keep saying?
Well, I don't think the occupation is justified either. So why are you saying that I do?
But Robbie, why aren't you that passionate about that occupation? Why aren't you that passionate about the Palestinian kids that have been beaten in the street and is on video all over social media? Why aren't you that passionate about when IDF came into the Al-Aqsa Mosque and beat Palestinians there when they were in their place of worship? Why weren't you that passionate then? Why weren't you that passionate when the IDF had been killing Palestinians all these years? Where's that same type of fire and passion? Why is that type of fire and passion only when it's happening to the Israeli people? You see, I think a lot of times we have blind spots. Sometimes it's blind spots. Sometimes it's bias. Sometimes it's subconscious bias. You don't see that same type of passion come out when it's the other way around. And this ain't the first time. Think about the many police brutality discussions that have happened on Rising. Robbie was not sympathetic, especially when TLAIB was still on the show and there were different police brutality cases that were brought up and the victim that was brutalized was Black. Robbie was not sympathetic. I remember Robbie and Bree having this conversation on Rising about a man who left his apartment and shot a 13-year-old kid who was trying to steal a car. Now, that man wasn't a police officer. Robbie had no sympathy. Turns out that wasn't even the guy who shot him. It wasn't even his car. It wasn't even his property. But there was no sympathy there. So what I see is a trend, boo. Let's continue.
Not saying that you do, but I have yet to hear you offer a solution for why the people that have been kept in an open air prison for 17 years and who are being indiscriminately bombed right now and their water shut off and their heat shut off and their food shut off and the access to medical supplies shut off and UN staff members being killed by Israeli rockets. What is the solution for that group of people, 2.3 million people, to get self-determination?
Is the solution for a terrorist group to attack?
Answer the question.
See, let's direct it right back to Hamas.
What is their solution?
I support a two-state
there was a peaceful
solution,
protest.
and
there have been decades of peaceful protests. In 2018, there was this march. I always get the name wrong. Sorry, March of Return. where thousands of Palestinians marched along the wall, peacefully protesting, and Israeli IDF soldiers sniped down and shot them in the feet and knees, including children.
So that
They
justifies...
tried, wait a minute, they tried BDS, and we were told, our own government said that if you support the boycott, divest, and sanction movement, you are not allowed to get a federal contract in several states, usually southern conservative states in the United States of America. So you're not allowed to do
DSA asks candidates
boycott.
whether they will make a pledge to never visit Israel. There's mutual boycotting going on.
What are you talking?
Why don't you have that same sympathy about the story that Bree just told you about the Palestinian kids that were shot at their feet? You see, you guys, you see what I'm saying?
That's fine if they want to say that. The point is,
of course.
The point is, you're allowed to boycott. The question is whether or not your political opinion should get you out of a job. I thought you were a libertarian. I thought you cared about that.
I'm going to read a statement from DSA San Francisco. Violent oppression inevitably produces resistance. Socialists support the Palestinian people's and all people's right to resist and fight for their own liberation. This weekend's events are no different.
I'm sorry, is that supposed to be own? They literally just recited international law, which allows occupied people to resist.
This is why I say you endorse the left is endorsing the terrorist activities.
Okay, you can say that all you want, but
Robbie would probably still think, he would probably say to the slaves, well, I'm sorry, you can't rise up, you can't resist, you got to stay in your place of despair that you're in. I'm sorry, but it's so, don't you understand? There's a difference between this is colonization.
If you think that resistance means a terrorist group is allowed to indiscriminately kill civilians, that is a monstrous point of view. That is the view of the DSA. And that's the view of Black Lives Matter.
It's not.
The view of DSA has always been one of their principles in reference to Israel and Palestine. They have always been consistent about that, and they've always been public about that. This is not something that's new. You guys, or not you guys, but Robbie just noticing it now, but DSA has always had that principle as a part of their organization.
Not the view of Black Lives Matter.
But it was the view of Black Lives Matter Chicago.
It's the view of someone who ran the Black Lives Matter Twitter page in Chicago. Right. And given that we just interviewed a libertarian, the head of the Libertarian Party, who just said that the Libertarian Party's rejection of RFK Jr. as a candidate was just a peccadillo by somebody that was running the Twitter account, and that she is very happy to embrace RFK Jr. as a candidate.
That's equivocating. I am calling out organizations and the public statements they're putting out.
No, the point is that when it came to the Black Lives Matter post, Robbie said it came from the entire organization. But when it came from the post from the Libertarian Party, Robbie was able to point out, oh no, it's just that one individual person who posted and handled that page. So how do you not know it's not one individual who is handling the Black Lives Matter Chicago page? You don't know. You didn't research it. You didn't check to see if that was the case. And in fact, most people haven't. Most people who are using that excuse about the Black Lives Matter post didn't check to see who runs that page, who's putting the information out there. And then they're saying all Black Lives Matter. So they're saying it's on the national level, the entire Black Lives Matter organization, which is not. That was Black Lives Matter Chicago.
Which endorsed terrorist activity, endorsed violence, endorsed murder of innocents.
The condemnable action.
Yeah, if I was the left, I would want to separate myself from these organizations a little bit more.
If you are not.
Just because someone's on the left doesn't mean they're a part of those organizations. You see, this is honestly what I think how a lot of people who are not on the left, I think this is what they think sometimes. They think that everybody's on the left. If you're on the left, you're a part of Black Lives Matter organization, you're a part of DSA or Socialist Alternative, I don't belong to any of those organizations. I'm on the left. I don't belong to any of those organizations, any of those groups. So that's a common misunderstanding. In fact, most of us are not a part of those groups. There's a reason why the membership, DSA membership, they lost 10,000 people this past year. But I think this is what a lot of people think. They think we're all part of like Black Lives Matter organization or this organization or that organization. I stand alone, boo.
I'm afraid of the words that are coming out of my mouth and would let me speak, Robbie. I would tell you. The condemnable action is the killing of civilians and innocents. The condemnable action is not resistance itself. That is something that is worth a distinction. And if you create conditions, every defender of Israel right now is saying, well, killing Palestinian kids is collateral damage. That's what it means for Israel to defend itself, that it's going to kill some Palestinian kids and innocents.
And I have criticized that every time it has appeared, has come across our screen.
The United States of America...
You didn't criticize it as passionately as you did a couple of minutes ago about the other side.
America did was to stand at a podium and say, without any caveats, Israel has a right to do that, to defend itself, even if it means killing those innocent women and children. And what people are responding to is the inconsistency with which the lives lost that are innocents are treated. And yes, it matters infinitely more that a sitting Congress member, and by the way, also Lindsey Graham, it wasn't just Max Miller, it was any number of Republican Congress members. Lindsey Graham also echoed the sentiment that we should level Gaza. He wants to go to nuclear war with Iran. That's the situation we're in. And so you're sitting here criticizing whoever runs the Black Lives Matter Chicago Twitter page. And I'm criticizing members of Congress who are openly
members of Congress too.
Who are openly contemplating genocide against a population of 2.3 million people, half of which are children.
But people don't care because they're brown and because most of them are Muslim.
I've criticized that over and over again. I will continue to do so. Lindsey Graham does not represent my views. I don't share any views with Lindsey Graham. His foreign policy is everything I think the Republican Party should pivot away from, and the Democratic Party, frankly, which is more bloodthirsty than the Republicans on this.
You keep saying that you criticize this stuff, Robbie, but
I do criticize. I don't hear a lot of criticism from you of the leftist groups endorsing terrorist attacks.
I don't think the leftist group should endorse terrorist attacks.
Well, they are endorsing
Wait a minute. Well, okay, and I don't agree with that. But what I fundamentally do agree with is that they endorse the right to resist. And you keep sitting here saying, I support.
What does that mean?
I support the occupation. The same way that if Israel has the right to defend itself, Palestinians also have the right to resist under international law. You are not allowed to keep people in an apartheid state in an occupied condition.
You're not allowed to shoot randomly into people's cars because you don't like the political situation.
You're not allowed to.
Dude, the IDF has been doing that shit for years. Like, that's the thing, Robbie. Robbie, where's that same sympathy towards apartheid, towards occupation? Like, these are huge issues. And Robbie's just acting like it's no big deal. So apparently, what do you think? These people are supposed to stay behind a cage their whole life?
Bomb humanitarian aid workers and Palestinian children.
I agree, you shouldn't do that.
Okay, so why is it that it only comes out they're not allowed? Israel has the right to resist, and it is violating international law. That's the subject of the conversation always. Palestinians have the right to resist.
And has violated international.
My question is defend, like when people say defend itself, defend against what? Defense against Hamas? And the reason why I ask is because Israel has all the resources. So it's like, I want to say this again. The fence is not a border. Gaza is not a separate country.
Talk to Bibi Netanyahu about it because it's him.
You're acting like I haven't criticized him all 3 days.
Why is it every time there's an effort to get to the root cause here? Who caused Hamas? Bibi Netanyahu. Who's killing these children? Who's keeping this occupation?
Who is endorsing what Hamas is doing? The American left. That's who.
There it goes again. That angst. No. I just want to put this out here for people who are not aware. There also have been Jewish people that are angry at Benjamin Netanyahu, by the way, that are angry at him, that have said that they feel that he's the one that has started this conflict. Whoo!
That's insane, Rob.
Well, it's true. It is insane, but it's true.
That is so
I can see their statements.
Okay.
Everyone knows it and everyone understands
The
it.
American left disappears and suddenly Israel is a multiracial, multi-religious, halcyon fantasy land where Jews and Palestinians are walking arm in arm down the Gaza Strip.
The American left is humiliating itself on this issue. It's so apparent to everyone.
You want that to be true so hard. But what the reality is that finally the veil where everyone feels appalled to say the simple words, Palestine is an apartheid state. Israel is oppressing an occupied people. 2.3 million people, half of which are children, are being systematically starved and denied medical attention and denied clean water.
And
a
violent resistance against innocent people is the correct response.
Incredible freedom.
You see this? He's not really focused on the fact that people are occupied. He doesn't care about that. He's basically just saying, like, he's like, well, yeah, that's not right either. But he really basically feels like they should just stay where they are and just deal with it. Because otherwise, what are they supposed to do? They can't go anywhere.
To finally be able to say those things, and in response, because Israel understands the incredible power of shifting its greatest allies in the public opinion away from unquestioning support, it is going out of
nothing is sending people more supportive of Israel than what the left is doing right now. More supportive of military action, which is what Hamas wants.
People are going out of their way to lie. And spread from the podium of the United States of America, the president they're so threatened by people being able to just speak to the obvious horror that the Palestinians have been living under for years, that they're now willing to lie and fabricate stories about Israeli kids in cages and what seems to be, and we'll see if any more reporting vets this out, a lie about 40 beheaded. How low and craven and gross do you have to be to make up a lie?
How craven do you have to be?
Let me just pause here for just a second, because there's something I do want to add here that I think is important as well. If you pay attention to this conversation and the debate that we just saw with Cornel West and Alan Dershowitz, if you notice it's almost like you're not allowed to have any sympathy for the Palestinians that have been abused and killed. And I've seen that with like both discussions. That's why Robbie keeps bringing it back to what Hamas did to the Israeli people and not focusing on what's happening to the Palestinian people, which has been happening to them for years. That's almost what it seems like. That seems like the narrative that people are trying to push.
To say they had it coming, which is what these people are saying.
You can keep putting words in people's mouth, but nobody believes that, Robbie.
Well,
I think Robbie's spending too much time on social media. He might need to take a break from Twitter for a second, because it sounds like to me he's looking at what people are saying on Twitter, right? But I think he needs to stop giving the left this type of credit. We're not that big. We are not that big. And I think Robbie's building it up in his head to believe that we're bigger than we actually are. We're just not. Not everyone who's saying that on Twitter is a part of the left. Some of those people aren't even, aligned with the political party at all. Some of those people are just looking at history and looking at the issue for what it is and looking at the conflict for what it is. So I think he's got to stop giving us more credit. We're really not that big.
I read the exact statement.
Tell your own tale.
The right to resist and fight for their own liberation. This weekend's events are no different.
Yes.
That is an endorsement under the banner of liberation, of the attacks that Hamas took this weekend.
Your quibble was with international law and the fact that you seem to think that people should be living in prison conditions for the rest of their lives without ever doing
I don't think violence against civilians will help to ameliorate the appalling conditions of the Palestinians.
Neither do
Nor do most of the Palestinians, I would presume.
Neither do I. And that's if you refuse to acknowledge.
Hamas thinks that, and the DSA thinks that.
If you refuse to acknowledge the difference between resistance and attacks on civilians, that's interesting.
I'm not the one who fails to make that distinction. The DSA, the left, is the one failing to make that distinction.
I just made that distinction. You might not have heard it over the bluster, but I made that distinction. And the fundamental issue is that, of course, Palestine has the right to resist, and people have to work through what that looks like. It includes violent resistance. International law allows violent resistance.
I don't think violent resistance will help liberate Palestine. It's a bad idea, and they shouldn't do it.
Robbie, so much of what you want to hear is always in the second second half of my statement,
All
but you
right, well,
cut it
your
off before I
statements-
can say it.
Your statements go on
Like, it
a long way
qualifies.
sometimes.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that I'm trying to inject nuance in a situation where you want to just sit here and echo what the mainstream media has to say about how terrorism is wrong. We all agree terrorism is wrong and killing civilians is wrong. I happen to want to.
I apologize for echoing the mainstream consensus that terrorism is bad.
No,
I'm sure our viewers will be appalled by that statement.
No, it's very brave and big of you to do that. The courageous thing to do right now is to call out
You do, in fact, make it seem difficult.
Our state-funded abuses of the Palestinian people. And while you say, I agree with that, every time I bring it up, you never bring it up. I bring it up and you say, oh, yeah, I agree. But that doesn't sound like advocacy to me.
And we're going to go ahead and stop it there because I thought that was a good stopping point. It does go on. But the point that Bree's making, and that's something I've noticed it too, he doesn't bring it up. She's the one that brings it up, and then he'll say that he agrees. So if he really cared about that issue so much, how come he never brings it up? And now here's someone now, I had my issues with Hassan Piker. He's rather annoying. He attacked us after, when we were doing our General Strike Summit, he decided to go after that, for whatever reason. It's just so stupid. But Hassan Piker actually recently had something to say about the conflict. And he did get a bit emotional as well. Listen to this.
The Shireen Abu Akleh murder, again, in the hands of an Israeli sniper that the Israeli government said was actually Palestinians, and Western media immediately disproved that. And then what did the IDF do? What did the IDF do?
I don't know.
When a wonderful voice for good, a Christian woman, a Christian Palestinian, and an American citizen, Shireen Abu Akleh, was murdered as she was on her way to one of these refugee camps. She had a press vest on. She had a press helmet on. She was shot in the neck so that she could be assassinated. Okay? This was a major issue. They wanted to do. Sorry. This is really fucked up. They went to her funeral and beat the shit out of people.
Yep.
And ripped the Palestinian flag off of her. Palestinians can't have a moment of peace in this fucking world. They can't even mourn the dead.
Now, I wanted to show you that because I just wanted to remind you that they can't even die in peace. I remember that when they were carrying her casket for the funeral, they were beating up the Palestinian people that you couldn't even have a funeral. But Robbie don't want to talk about that. See, that's the thing. None of these people want to bring this up. Alan Dershowitz don't want to talk about this. And that was all on video. I'll take the comment on Rockfin, Eric. I have a statement I need to read to you guys. From Imran. Thank you so much for the tip, Roger. As Joe was leaving Afghanistan, they tried to do another what about the women and children? First, Persian Gulf War, they lied about incubator babies. Maybe we should start having a message alongside pro-Palestinians, reminding people of East Palestine, Maui, Jackson, Flint, NYC, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. And thank you for this as well. They're trying to pull us into a who has the moral high ground to daze and confuse the people who are mostly apolitical, to make us malleable, to send money abroad to prop up military campaigns. We must ask the public, who should Congress prioritize, you or sending money to prop up military campaigns abroad? That's what we must ask American electorate. Making the moral argument pulls some, but this argument pulls all. That's a really good point there, Roger. I'm going to go to these super chats here. Thank you for the super chat, Rome. Palestinians and Israelis are already living under a two-state solution, and it has failed. Thank you, Mikey. Brianna is toxic gaslighting manipulator. Robbie just doesn't handle it well. Let it build up. She even did the low voice, "Why are you so mad?" thing. I don't think I would say that she's a toxic gaslighting manipulator. It's a debate. Thank you, Delthea, who's been a member for 26 months. There's a difference between the rhetoric of justification and the reality of consequence. If you strike people long enough, they strike you back. The Oracle says the bottom line is that the lies of the establishment ain't working now. That's right. And this one as well. I guess resistance for the Palestinians should be tapping on the fence of the prison and saying, "Excuse me, can you please stop occupying and oppressing us?" Here you go. And Mario says, Robbie walked home that day, no scooter. Yeah, I don't know. Like that was something else. I have a statement I want to read to you, and this is from Imran Khan. Recent statement from Imran Khan. Just a reminder for those who are not aware, Imran Khan is in prison. He was Prime Minister of Pakistan. Later on, it was discovered that the U.S. government actually pushed Pakistani officials to arrest Imran Khan and try to charge him with corruption, which they didn't really have proof about. But this was all because that Imran Khan actually wanted to remain neutral in reference to the war between Russia and Ukraine. So we had our hands in all of that. Now, this statement. Chairman Imran Khan's message to the people of Pakistan shared through his family on the 10th of October. When I was illegally incarcerated in Ataq jail, the first few days were particularly challenging. I wasn't provided a bed and had to sleep on the floor and had insects and mosquitoes all over me. But with time, I have adjusted well to the prison conditions. Let it be known that there is a difference of day and night between the Imran Khan of today and the Imran Khan who was in prison on August 5th. Today, I am stronger and fitter, spiritually, mentally, and physically than ever before. During my time in prison, I have had the opportunity to study and research the Holy Quran in depth, along with other books, which has strengthened my faith. I was also able to introspect the last few years of my political life. Regardless of what prison they keep me in, whatever conditions they impose upon me, I will not back down even an inch from the quest of Azadi, Hakiki Azadi, for the upholding of the rule of law in the Constitution of Pakistan, at the core of which is free and fair elections. You see this, guys? This is another reason why I think they wanted him gone. Free and fair elections. To those suggesting that I leave the country, know that I will live and die in Pakistan and I will not leave my land to go anywhere. As far as the cipher case is concerned, the bogus case is designed to protect former Army Chief General Bajwa and Donald Liu. I was the elected Prime Minister of the country. Treason was committed against me and my government by General Bajwa. Instead of investigating the foreign conspiracy and orchestrating a regime change, a case has been filed against me for informing the people of Pakistan, the real protectors of this country, about this treason. If there's one thing that bothers me and pains me is the suffering of my workers who have been illegally imprisoned, especially our women workers who have been in captivity for months by a few people who abuse their power to satisfy their egos. I appeal to the judiciary to provide justice and order the immediate release of our workers. Finally, do not give up. This time of trial will end because Allah says that with every difficulty there is ease. Keep raising your voice against this unelected predatory group and their facilitators at every forum, and keep demanding a fair and transparent election in the country. I'm predicting that on whatever day the election is held, people of Pakistan will come out in huge numbers to vote for Pakistan, Tehreek-e-Insaf, and defeat all these parties combined. No matter how much these people cheat, Their only destiny is defeat. Pakistan Zindabad. Wanted to share that with the people. All righty. Quick announcement here. I want to cover something about Louisiana. If you live in Louisiana, you need to know about this. This is happening this weekend. Actually, tomorrow, you need to know about this. If you haven't had a chance to do so, hit that like button. That helps me with the algo. But for those of you in Louisiana, it looks like you have something to vote for tomorrow. It says that Louisiana does not feature the power of initiative for either citizen-initiated constitutional amendments or initiated state statutes. Only the Louisiana legislature has the power to bring forth initiatives as legislatively referred constitutional amendment to amend the Constitution by voter ratification. The following will appear on the ballot this Saturday, October 14th, so tomorrow. Louisiana Amendment 1, ban on private or foreign funding of election cost amendment, October 2023. A yes vote supports prohibiting state and local governments from using funds, goods, and services donated by foreign governments or non-governmental private sources for the purpose of conducting elections. What would this do? The amendment would prohibit funds, goods, and services donated by a foreign government or non-governmental private source for use in conducting elections. Specifically, it would add a provision to the Louisiana Constitution stating that no funds, goods, or services donated by a foreign government or a non-governmental source shall be used to conduct elections unless provided for in the election code and subject to restrictions provided by general law. A note here that Roger added, we have a bill like this one. We have a bill like this that passed, but not the other close to New York Democracy Preservation Act. Don't know what the holdup is. Who's supporting this? State Representative Blake Miguez? Association of Mature American Citizens, one of the organizations supporting it, Louisiana Freedom Caucus. Arguments. This is from Andy Roth. The State Freedom Caucus Network has been working with Louisiana Freedom Caucus as well as the Election Integrity Network to build local awareness in Louisiana about this important amendment. It is crucial for election integrity in Louisiana to keep Zuckerbucks and foreign money out of the realm of influence in America elections. Interesting. Oh, I have to go back in the type V and see. It logged me out. Sorry. Oh, can you scroll it for me, Eric? I can't scroll it. I got locked out of type V and C. Oh, Eric disappeared. So maybe. Oh, Eric got locked out too. Okay, so I don't know, guys. Maybe I can pull it up here. Sorry, guys. I have to. Eric might have lost connection. That's probably why Type B and C dropped out. Let me see if I got a message. Nope. Okay. Let me just pull it up from the Dropbox. But that's for tomorrow for Louisiana. So just FYI for those of you that are there. And I don't see this anywhere else in the folder, so I don't know. I could pull it from Twitter, sorry. I thought there was one more thing that I needed to mention on there. That's why I didn't want to miss that. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Okay. Come out here. And I'll just share my screen. But like I said, I think I said most of it, but there's one more thing here that I did want to show. And that's, I thought there was one more part down here that you needed to see. Oh, there was no campaign finance money spent for or against it. And then where are we here? Oh, yeah. Louisiana Amendment 2, constitutional right to worship in a church or a place of worship amendment. A yes vote supports providing the in-state constitution that the freedom to worship in a church or other place of worship is a fundamental right that is worthy of the highest order of protection, and providing that a legal challenge brought against a state or a local government action for conflicting with the right would be required to be examined by a court with strict scrutiny. This is interesting. One of the things that Roger added is that this is a direct response to the mandated lockdowns issued by Governor Edwards, where Edwards issued a stay-at-home order March 22nd, 2020, directing all Louisiana residents to shelter at home and limit movements outside of their homes beyond essential needs. On April 30th, 2020, Governor Edwards extended his stay at home order until May 15th, 2020. People's First Amendment rights were violated when they were not allowed to gather in their place of worship. So that's something that Roger brought up there. And so that will be on the ballot tomorrow for those of you that live in Louisiana. No money spent for or against it. And then, wait, how many? I thought there were just 2 of these. Okay, I didn't, for some reason, when I opened this earlier, there were only 2 of these. I don't know why there's 4 of these now. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I'm going to have to kind of speed through these because I still have one more thing. Okay, Louisiana Amendment 3, State Retirement System Funding Amendment. A yes vote supports requiring a minimum of 25% of state revenue that is designated as non-recurring to be applied to the balance of the unfunded liability of the state retirement system. So that will also be on the ballot as well. And that's supported by Republicans. As you can see, no money spent to support or oppose. And the last one is Louisiana Amendment 4, prohibit property tax exemptions for nonprofits owning damaged residential property. A yes vote supports prohibiting nonprofit organizations from receiving a property tax exemption if they own residential property that is in such a state of despair that it is dangerous to the public's health or safety, as determined by the governing authority of the municipality or parish the property is located in. So that's an interesting one. Prohibit property tax exemptions for nonprofits. And then I just want to say, because I have to kind of speed through this, one of the notes from Roger was nonprofit organization not being taxed exempt. You say that sounds like a Sabby special. Sabrina, did you write this? Did they call you up and get your advice, or is the Louisiana legislative staff watching the Sabby? So yeah, that was interesting. They didn't get it from me, I don't think, but yeah, people know how I feel about that. It's supported by the Democratic Party and State Representative Gabe Ferment, who is Republican. So you have bipartisan support here. No money spent for or against. And we'll go ahead and try to start Wyoming, and then I'll have to finish Wyoming up on Tuesday because let me see. Why do I have to finish Wyoming on Tuesday? Oh, I'm not going to be live on Sunday, guys. I'm taking Sunday off. I got some plans with the fam. So you won't see me live again until Tuesday. But I did just want to show, at least start Wyoming, and then I can finish it on Tuesday. Okay. Going over to Wyoming. And then with, I'll tell you after. All right, Wyoming. Wyoming is a little bit different. Citizens of Wyoming may initiate legislation as a state statute. Although the state does not provide for indirect initiatives, legislators may avert a ballot measure by passing substantially similar legislation. In Wyoming, citizens also have the power to repeal legislation via veto referendum. Citizens may not initiate constitutional amendments. The Wyoming state legislature, however, may place legislatively referred constitutional amendments on the ballot with a 2/3 majority vote of each chamber. And I'll leave that there, and I'll pick up the rest of that on Tuesday, and we'll get into Wyoming. Thank you, Live in Style International Inc. The issue is not with older Israelis or Palestinians. Both younger ones are born on the same land. They will amaze us. Interesting. Thank you for that. All right, guys. Again, no show this Sunday. Got plans with the fam, but I will be back Tuesday evening. I hope you learned a lot. Tomorrow, look for that interview that I had with Kim Iverson today to premiere. That'll premiere tomorrow. We recorded it today. And then next week, I'll be recording an interview with Katie Halper as well. So stay tuned, folks. And I hope you enjoy your weekend. You know how we do this? Have a good night. Keep up the fight.